Every thought you think of comes out of your mouth. What's new? What's the deal? Where do they come from? Do you ever think what you don't say? Probably not that much. Probably not that much. Probably not this time. When you could think ahead, the special souls are dead. What's the world got in store? Could you talk some more?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Whew. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
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 Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Deo. Deo.
Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake is won't go down. Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake is won't go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter. Baby's got corrosion now. Corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Baby does got it. Just doesn't have it here. I don't think. Did she leave it here? I don't see it anywhere around here. But she's got it. Yeah, baby. She's got it. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday here on the old show of news that we have here. Bad news, mostly. Maybe some good news. My coffee's good. Yeah, it's Friday the 10th. It's 10:10. It's time to dial 1010. Remember those commercials, the phone commercials? Dial 1010 and then something else. I can't remember. But it was a commercial. I didn't make that up. It wasn't a fever dream or some sort of drug-induced, hallucination. I have those, just not about phone commercials. Good morning. We got peeps here. Start off with the old rumbly tumblies there. We got Spirit of the Age. Good morning, my friend. He said, I'll take my news rare with a heaping helping of ExtraBulla on the side. Well, that's what you get. You get rare, raw news at a low, low price around these parts. Bella, good to see you. Got the new profile pic. That's nice. David Longdon? Is that what it is? That's it. The Palestinians got their rebel back. Yeah. Yeah. We'll be talking about the ceasefire here. The ceasefire in just a moment. We got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show. UFO Show Intergalactic. Another dimension. Another dimension. Another dimension. Another dimension. It's a Beastie Boys song, if you didn't know that. He was the leader of Big Big Train. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Bella's always down on the music scene, so it's always nice to chat with Bella. Miss Laine Petersen is in the house too. What's up, Laine? Good morning to you. Who else? We got Max RJ creeping around, Super Max, as I like to call him. Like the prison, only he's captured my heart. See how that works? Yes, my heart has to go to a Supermax because my heart's dangerous. It's full of chemicals and all kinds of neat things that you probably don't want to talk about. So 3 weeks from today is Halloween. We are all up in Rocktober as things progress. Before we get to the news, I always I love money, and I just can't get enough of it when I have it. You know, I just kind of do that, you know, when I have it. But I have to have the money to do it. So I got to sell this shitty coffee here. This Desperation Blend, extra dark roast ground coffee. No whole bean for you, mister. Carried into our solar system on the back of 3i Atlas, this interstellar blend of toxic waste, broken dreams, and hot garbage juice will have you volunteering for a one-way trip to Alpha Centauri in no time. The original formula comes from the pages of the Necronomicon itself, casting spells that may cause side effects including dry heaves, mushroom zombie brain, and a longing to bury yourself alive in the Gobi Desert. Did money once kick you in the balls and steal your lunch money? You ever sought out a morning beverage that forces you to look in the mirror and wonder to yourself, why does God only punish the innocent? Then grab a bag of desperation. It's Desperation Blend, extra dark roast, ground coffee, found online and wherever the souls of the damned exist. And remember, kids, use promo code GRIFTER to pay an additional 20%. Yeah, so it's bad coffee. It's really bad. Don't buy it, or buy it, but don't buy it. Seriously. I'm not responsible. We should put a disclaimer on there. Is like, not responsible for your health. I would not consume this coffee if I were you. You got Traeger Brothers roasters in your cup. Look at you. Man, if this was the other show, I'd hit the fancy button. Where's the fancy bit? Never had Traeger Brothers. Sounds good though. But Bella don't drink shit. Bella drinks good stuff. It's good to see you, Bella. We have news. So the ceasefire, a ceasefire has been reached between Israel and Hamas. That was negotiated to a certain extent, you know, by Trump and company. But we've seen this movie before, folks. You know, just because Hamas ceases firing, it doesn't mean Israel does, right? Of course not. If you've been paying attention, you know that is to be true. So this is from antiwar.com. Be sure you're checking out antiwar.com, getting your news aggregation there. They have all kinds of stories there from different sources and their own journalism as well. Them and the Libertarian Institute, they do good work, journalism-wise, at the very least. So Israeli government approves first phase of Gaza ceasefire deal. So there's phases to this ceasefire, right? So the Israeli government approved the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal early this morning during a meeting that included U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Yeah, that what's his name? The guy from Facebook. He kind of looks like him a little bit. Very robotic. The government has just now approved the framework for the release of all the hostages, the living and the deceased. The office of Bibi said in a statement, according to the Times of Israel, the approval of the deal now means that a ceasefire is in effect. However, Al Jazeera reported an Israeli airstrike and shelling in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza, and attacks east of Gaza City early Friday morning. The IDF continued to bomb Gaza on Thursday, including a strike in Gaza City that killed at least 4 Palestinians and left 40 missing under the rubble. The UN has said it's ready to surge aid into Gaza to bring relief to the starving population. And we're going to get more into the weeds about the details here in just a moment. But under the deal, Hamas will release all remaining Israeli captives within 72 hours in exchange for about 2,000 Palestinians held in Israeli jails. Within 24 hours, Israel will pull its troops back from some areas of Gaza, but the IDF will retain control of more than 50% of the Palestinian territory. So that, so that's not pulling out. It's pulling back a little bit, but it ain't pulling out. Dropping its demand for a full Israeli withdrawal in exchange for the release of all Israeli hostages was a significant concession from Hamas, which says it has received a guarantee from the U.S. that Israel won't restart its genocidal war. Ask Russia about American guarantees. Okay, they'll tell you a story. We've received guarantees from the mediators and from the U.S. administration, and everyone confirmed that the war has completely ended. We will continue to work with all national and Islamic forces to complete the next steps, said Khalil al-Hayya, a senior Hamas official who Israel recently tried to assassinate in Qatar. Many details of the long-term implementation of the ceasefire deal still need to be worked out, but Trumpy is insisting that he has ended the war. Of course he's insisted that. And that the deal will lead to an everlasting peace. He's so fun. He's so cute when they're little, thinking that Israel's going to do what he says. According to a report from Israel Hayom, the U.S. has given Israel a guarantee that it would back Israeli military action if it determined Hamas violated the deal in a way that poses a security threat. And you notice they put that in air quotes, poses a security threat. That could be anything. That's like Antifa. Antifa could mean anything, right? It's very, very open-ended position there. The report said the understanding constitutes a side agreement between the U.S. and Israel. The U.S. gave Israel a similar side deal for the November 2024 Lebanon ceasefire agreement as well, which Israel continues to violate on a near daily basis. Yeah, they sure do. So this is what we know about the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire and what comes next. This is from Mondeweiss. Look at that place. These poor people. 2 days after the Israeli war on Gaza entered its third year, Palestinians across the Gaza Strip burst into celebrations Thursday morning after Trumpy announced that a ceasefire deal had been reached. The announcement came following 4 days of talks in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, which included a Hamas negotiating team headed by its political chief, as we said, Khalil al-Hayya, who Israel attempted to assassinate last month. So the known details of the deal include only the first phase of a ceasefire, which includes a halt to military operations, a withdrawal of Israeli forces to an agreed line inside Gaza. Hey, CBC voter, good to see you. The entry of humanitarian aid into the Strip, and an exchange of prisoners that would see the release of all Israeli captives, living and dead, in Gaza. According to Trump's map, according to the Trump plans map, I don't know why that was hard to say, Israel would withdraw its forces in an initial phase up to a line that starts from the northern Gaza governorate cities of Beit Hanun and Beit Lahia. The line extends east of Gaza City through the Barij refugee camp in the central governorate and east of Deir al-Balah. It then continues to the town of Quzaa, east of Khan Yunis, and ends in the east of Rafah. Shortly after the deal was announced Thursday, the Israeli Army radio reported that the Israeli Army began to withdraw its forces from Gaza City and its surroundings, where Israel has been conducting a large-scale invasion, forcing up to 900,000 Palestinians to flee the city. So let's talk about the Palestinian prisoners. The announced deal also includes the release of 20 living Israeli captives in exchange for the release of 250 Palestinian prisoners serving high sentences, in addition to 1,700 Palestinians who were detained in the Gaza Strip throughout the war. And these are not Hamas, these 1,700. These are just regular-ass Palestinians. Israeli reports indicated that the negotiations over the names of Palestinian prisoners to be released were still ongoing in the final hours before the deal was announced. Hamas and the other Palestinian factions insisted on releasing the 303 Palestinians who were serving life sentences for their involvement in attacks that led to the death of Israelis. Israel, on the other hand, only agreed to discuss 289 names, as the remaining 14 are citizens of Israel, and refuses to recognize them as Palestinians, considering them an internal Israeli issue. Finger man. It's all right, bud. You're here. You didn't miss much. You just missed the stupid coffee commercial. That's it. And the howdies, but you got your howdy, so that's fine. Everything's good. In addition, Israel held its veto on several high-ranking names among Palestinian prisoners, namely Fatah leader Marwan Barghouti, the Secretary General of the PFLP, who we'll talk about here in just a moment, Ahmad Sadat, and Hamas leader Ibrahim Hamed, whom the Palestinian factions insisted on. The final list of Palestinian prisoners set to be released has not been made public yet. However, the Qatar-based Al Arabi TV quoted sources as saying that negotiations over the names of prisoners have ended and that both sides have made concessions. Currently, Israel holds some 11,000 Palestinians in its prisons, a third of whom are administrative detainees held without charge or trial. About 400 of them are minors. Of course there is. All right, so this talking about humanitarian aid getting into Gaza. So according to the deal, Israel would also allow the entry of 400 trucks carrying humanitarian aid per day for the first few days, with the quantity later increasing to 600 trucks per day, which I think is what it was before this war started. Before the war, the daily rate of trucks entering Gaza was around 500 to 600 trucks, which is considered the minimum required quantity according to international organizations. And with all the starvation that's going on there now, they probably need double that at least. Not just food, but treatment for people with malnutrition. Because you can't just, if somebody's malnutritioned, you can't just like give them a turkey leg and say, all right, you're cured. No, it's a process. Your body has to get used to like actual food again. And, it takes like maybe like an IV or something to start things off if you're like severely nutritioned. The UN Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Tom Felcher. This guy's last name is Felcher. That's got to be Fletcher. That's got to be Fletcher. Please don't let this guy's name be Felcher. Oh. It said on Thursday that the entry of humanitarian aid into the Strip requires several entry points and security guarantees. Felcher. Jesus. The deal also stipulates that Palestinians would be allowed to return to Gaza City and areas of northern Gaza, which have been forcibly depopulated by Israeli forces in recent months. Israel has already displaced the residents of those areas in the final months of 2024 in a large-scale offensive known as the General's Plan. During the offensive, Israeli forces destroyed most residential blocks and buildings, leaving nowhere for Palestinians to return. In late January this year, as Israel cleared the way back to the area as part of the first ceasefire deal, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians returned to the north in a historic return march. After the ceasefire went into effect, some people tried to return to North Gaza via Al-Rashid Street along the coast, but Israeli tanks positioned nearby fired tank shells at the displaced. Tanks firing upon innocent people. At least 1 million Palestinians continue to be crowded in the narrow coastal Mawasi area in Khan Yunis and in Deir al-Balah in the central Gaza Strip. So the deal has not been signed. Well, the deal has been signed. They actually have approved the deal. So we'll go past this. Trump said in a statement to the press from the White House that he'll travel in the Middle East and that Israeli captives will be released on Monday or Tuesday. Trump also admitted that around 70,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza. Well, a lot more than that. They haven't even looked under the rubble yet. Hamas's Politburo member, Usama Hamdan, said the release of Israeli captives will begin Monday. Meanwhile, Israeli bombings continued in Gaza even after the announcement of the ceasefire deal, as we told you. The spokesperson of the Palestinian Civil Defense in Gaza, Mohammed al-Mughir, told AFP that since the announcement of the deal, Israeli strikes have targeted several areas in the Strip, especially in the north. Al-Mughir added that civil defense teams are having difficulties in reaching survivors due to the damaged roads and the continuous flights of Israeli warplanes in the area. Okay, so we'll talk about him in a second. Hamas, for its part, announced the end of the war in a statement read by its Politburo chief. The Hamas officials said that the ceasefire deal was reached thanks to the perseverance of our people, adding that despite the enemy's attempts to break the agreements, our efforts continued seriously and responsibly in negotiations. Our only goal has been halting the aggression and saving the blood of our people. During al-Hayeh's live statement, Israeli warplanes bombed and destroyed a large residential building in the center of Gaza City. According to the Palestinian Civil Defense, approximately 40 people, including children, are still missing under the rubble. So what's going to happen next, right? So from what I gathered, Hamas is not going to disarm until there's a Palestinian state. That was non-negotiable on their part. The deal doesn't include any clauses on the definitive end of the war, the disarmament of Hamas and other Palestinian resistance factions, the post-war administration of Gaza, or reconstruction. All these issues have been relegated to the second phase of the negotiations, which are set to begin immediately after the ceasefire officially takes effect, which it has technically as of this morning. Although Trump has repeatedly expressed his will to end the war as a pathway for peace in the Middle East, there is no written guarantee that Israel will not break the ceasefire and resume its bombing of Gaza after the release of its captives, as it did last March. Kameshwari Kate, what's up, Kate? Happy Thanksgiving long week. Oh, it's Canadian Thanksgiving? Is that what it is there, up there? Up there in the Northland? Happy Thanksgiving to you. Ours is next month, I think. Yes. You'll see a lot of football games. That's when you know it's Thanksgiving. So, as we said, Israeli strike on Gaza City kills 4, buries dozens under rubble. An Israeli airstrike in the Al-Sabra neighborhood of Gaza City Thursday night killed at least 4 Palestinians and buried dozens under the rubble. According to the Palestinian news agency Wafa, about 40 people were missing after the strike, and rescue efforts continue. The strike on Thursday came despite Trump's announcement the night before that Israel and Hamas agreed to the first phase of a Gaza ceasefire deal. Early Friday morning, as we said, the government formally approved the deal, meaning the ceasefire has finally taken hold. Wafa also reported that the airstrikes in Gaza City brought Thursday's death toll to 29, though the number includes bodies of Palestinians killed in previous attacks that were recovered from the rubble. And you're going to see a lot more of that, too, of people being recovered from the rubble, too. Gaza's health ministry said in its daily update on Thursday, which it releases about midday Gaza time, that at least 10 Palestinians were killed and 49 were injured over the previous 24-hour period. Among the dead were 2 Palestinians killed while attempting to get aid. Be glad when that shit stops. Israeli attacks on Thursday included strikes on Gaza City and Khan Yunis, as we said. According to Wafa, at least 1 Palestinian was killed by an Israeli airstrike in Khan Yunis, and another was killed by a drone attack in the city. Another person was killed by Israeli gunfire to the northwest of the city. In Gaza City, several people were injured by a drone attack near the Al-Yarmouk school in the western part of the city. Airstrikes were also reported in Gaza City's Zaytun neighborhood, where Israeli forces have turned into a wasteland since launching an offensive in the area in early August. The health ministry said that the total violent death toll since October 7th in the last 2 years has reached 67,000. Again, those numbers are skewed. Those are the ones we just know about. But aid is coming in. Aid trucks cross into Gaza from Rafah after the truce agreement. So this is a little good news. The Egyptian Red Crescent said 153 trucks carrying aid were heading to Gaza via the Rafah border crossing, following the announcement of a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. 2 sources from the Egyptian aid organization confirmed on Thursday that 153 aid trucks entering through the Rafah crossings bypass road to be brought into Gaza. Among the trucks, 80 were from the United Nations, 21 from Qatar, and 17 from Egyptian Red Crescent, they added. Israel completely halted the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza in March. On August 22nd, the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, the IPC, formally declared famine in parts of Gaza, meaning 3 critical thresholds: extreme food deprivation, acute malnutrition, and starvation-related deaths had been breached. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, Palestinian deaths linked to hunger and famine have reached at least 460, including more than 150 children. We'll get a little bit more in depth on some of those numbers here coming up. In September, the UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry, that's a lot of eyes, on the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and Israel, concluded that Israel has committed genocide in Gaza. Israel must end its policy of starvation, lift the siege, and facilitate and ensure the unimpeded access of humanitarian aid at scale and unhindered access of all United Nations staff, including UNRWA and OHCHR, international staff, and all recognized international humanitarian agencies delivering and coordinating aid. So that was the thing. That's why they had that GHF. Basically, it was the Zio aid, the Zionist aid. Hey, come here. We've got aid. Pop, 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 pop. That's basically what they were doing. So what is the result of this, these 2 years of hell, mostly the last few months of blockade and starvation? Well, more than 54,000 children younger than 5 may be acutely malnourished in Gaza, study finds. Oh, okay. What's up, Willie? Listening and taking care of car shit this morning. Oh yeah, car shit. I'm glad you're okay. Willie had a bit of an incident the other day, but we're glad you're okay. I hope the car ends up being okay too, Willie. Jesus. After 2 years of war and dire food shortages, more than 54,600 children younger than 5 in Gaza may be acutely malnourished, with more than 12,800 severely affected, according to a new study by a UN agency. By early August, roughly 16% of children ages 6 months to just under 5 years in Gaza were suffering from a life-threatening type of malnutrition known as acute wasting, including nearly 4% with severe wasting, according to the analysis by the UN Relief and Workers Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East. That's UNRWA, the primary health care provider to Palestinian refugees in the region. Wasting requires treatment with therapeutic food over several weeks and sometimes hospitalization. They don't have any hospitals in Gaza. They'll have to rebuild those. The study published Wednesday in the Lancet Medical Journal is the most comprehensive study of child hunger in the region to date, the authors said. It relied on screenings of nearly 220,000 children from dozens of health centers and medical sites in Gaza between January last year and mid-August this year. You knew that? Okay. And it's not just malnutrition. 78 Palestinians died in Israeli detention over the last couple of years. In the 2 years since the October 7th Hamas attack, Israel has rounded up large numbers of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. Scores of Palestinians have died in Israeli detention. Multiple sources have documented rampant medical neglect, deprivation, beatings, and torture of Palestinians in Israeli captivity. On Tuesday, the Palestinian Prisoners Society reported 22-year-old detainee Ahmad Hatem Mohammed Kadiret was the 78th Palestinian to die in an Israeli prison over the past 2 years. Kadiret was arrested on May 23rd last year. He was held without trial or charged despite his chronic diabetes and was placed in inhumane conditions in the notorious Naqab prison for most of his detention. The PPS statement explained, in recent months, Kadiret's health severely deteriorated after contracting scabies, skin disease, which caused intense itching and repeated seizures. He also suffered from severe hunger episodes, dangerously low blood sugar due to his condition, and extreme difficulty moving or meeting his daily needs. His weight dropped to about 40 kilograms. Several outlets and agencies have reported severe and ubiquitous abuse in Israeli detention facilities that could amount to torture, including Israeli outlets 972 Magazine and Haaretz. Detainees and prisoners at Megiddo prison in northern Israel have reported several cases of harsh violence and abuse carried out by prison wardens. Haaretz reported the torture included guards kicking, punching, hitting their testicles, and humiliating prisoners. Some testified that a prisoner who was beaten died of his injuries. According to 972 Magazine, Israeli soldiers subjected Palestinian detainees to electric shocks, burned their skin with lighters, spat in their mouths, and deprived them of sleep, food, and access to bathrooms until they defecated on themselves. The outlet continued. Some testified to having been beaten all over their bodies and having cigarettes extinguished on their necks or backs. Several people are known to have died as a result of being held in these conditions. Last month, a human rights group met with detained Palestinian Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, whose health is deteriorating in Israeli captivity. Since his arrest, Dr. Abu Safia has lost approximately 25 kilograms. He suffers from serious scabies and heart problems, but is not receiving any medical treatment, PHRI wrote on the Twitters. It became clear during the visit that Dr. Abu Safia has not been brought before a judge, investigated, or even given any information about the reason for his arrest since March. Placing the Palestinians in horrific conditions is the explicit policy of National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. He called on Israel to execute Palestinian prisoners to resolve overcrowding issues. The rising number of prisoner killings proves once again that the occupation's prison system is persistently implementing a policy of slow killing, PPS added. Not a month goes by without a new martyr being recorded among the prisoners. So, and you're going to see this. You're going to see this now as more human rights groups have access to Gaza. The question is going to be how many journalists that aren't Palestinian are going to have access to Gaza to actually report what's going on there. Peace Dove. What is going on? Chosen people are so morally fucked. Yeah. Yes, they really are. They really are. Peace Dove. So, like I said, this isn't over by any stretch. We like to think it is. And Lord willing and the creek don't rise, maybe one day this might actually be over. But as long as you have psychopaths like people like what's his name? Bezalel Smotrich, it's not going to be over. They want to eradicate these people. They want to get rid of them. So arm yourself. Israeli right decries Gaza deal as Smotrich says war not over. There's one of the faces of evil right there. You can see the evil in his eyes, too. That's terrible. Though the Gaza ceasefire deal has prompted celebration in Israel in anticipation of the remaining captives will soon be released, discontent is rumbling among the powerful Israeli right wing, with Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich insisting the war is not over. The Israeli religious right, most prominently represented by Smotrich and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, have for 2 years pushed for a total takeover of the Gaza Strip, including illegal Jewish settlement there, and fought against previous ceasefire deals. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet will vote on the first phase. Well, they already did, and they did approve it. So far, Ben-Gvir has yet to comment on the deal. Smotrich, meanwhile, posted a statement on Twitter saying he will not vote for the agreement, but nonetheless taking credit for it, saying all living captives estimated to be 20 being released at once and immediately. Yonino, what's up? No, but you know who they gave the Nobel Prize to? And I saw it. I wasn't going to report on it. It was like that Maria Conchina, somebody in Venezuela that was opposing Nicolas Maduro, big time Zionist chick. So that tells you something about the. They gave it to Obama too, and he just bombed the shit out of people. The bomb's in the name, and they still gave him the Peace Prize. So that tells you something about the Peace Prize and its credibility. Ben-Gvir said there was a tremendous responsibility to ensure that this is not, God forbid, a deal of hostages in exchange for stopping the war, as Hamas thinks. The state of Israel will continue to strive with all its might for the true eradication of Hamas and the genuine disarmament of Gaza so that it no longer poses a threat to Zionism. I'm sorry, to Israel. Did I say that out loud on purpose? The reaction among the two ministers' supporters has been even more forceful. Far-right WhatsApp and Telegram groups where religious Zionist activities mobilize lamented that Palestinian prisoners would be freed as part of the deal. A lot of joy mixed with a lot of sadness. The hostages are returning, but what about all the terrorists who will be released? The admin of one group posted. We will not allow terrorists with blood on their hands to roam freely under our noses, he said, adding that activists will block the vehicles transporting Palestinians out of Israeli prisons. You know, most of the people that were killed on October 7th were killed by the IDF, right? Yeah, you guys know that? No, you don't know that? Okay. Well, now you do. Settlement Minister Orit Strouk, sounds like a Harry Potter name, who belongs to Smotrich's religious Zionism party, called the ceasefire deal Oslo III, associating it with the Oslo Accords of the 90s, which right-wing Israelis see as a capitulation to the Palestinians. Strouk told Israeli news site Ynet that the agreement symbolizes giving up parts of the land of Israel because Gaza is part of the land of Israel, and I am disappointed that Netanyahu did not explain it to Trump. Steve Wolfbrand in the house. What's up, Steve? Good to see you, bud. According to Strouk, the cabinet set clear parameters for any ceasefire deal, which are completely contrary to parts of this agreement. This completely turns back on the goals of the war, she added. Oh, it's a she. Strouk. Orit Strouk. Interesting name. Limor Sonhar Malek. I probably butchered that name. An MP from Ben Gvir's Jewish Power Party. I was in the Jewish Power Party once. It was awesome. They lifted me up in a chair. Kept saying shalom. It was nice. And they were playing house music too. Wrote an article for Channel 7 criticizing the plan to free Palestinian prisoners, many of whom are women and children from Gaza detained without charge. Yeah, why do you got kids in prison? That's probably the first people you should have let out. A deal in which even a single Hamas supporter remains alive is a resounding failure, Sonhar Malek wrote. Powerful far-right influencers are also lashing out at the plan. Eilert Lash? What? Eilert Lash? That's not a real name. A prominent settler leader wrote on X or Twitter's that she hopes that Netanyahu will order the army to begin attacking Gaza again immediately after the captives are released because she's a fucking psychopath. But if Netanyahu signs this humiliating, dangerous, and crazy surrender deal and intends to stick to it, rebuild Gaza, and give the Nazis there a complete victory, he must go home, she said. She wasn't heard by anybody because she had her head up her ass. Similar criticism was voiced by Alicia Yared, one of the most prominent members of the Hilltop Youth, the paramilitary settler group that systematically attacked Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. Yared said Hamas has succeeded in releasing prisoners, canceling Israel's achievements in the Gaza Strip, and bringing the state of Israel to its knees after 2 years of castrated and handcuffed fighting. That they killed hundreds of thousands of people. That's castrated and handcuffed. All right. The bottom line is that Hamas is portrayed as a winner in the eyes of our enemies around the world, he said. Cartoonist Reichert, meanwhile, has suggested the Israeli left wing, which has prioritized a deal to free the captives over continuing the war, is responsible for the agreement. Yes, let's go after all the left-wingers, right? Isn't that part of the plan? He posted a cartoon showing the yellow ribbon, which for 2 years has been a symbol for the captives taken on October 7th, portrayed as a noose. Every retarded Arab will try to kidnap a Jew because there is really no price. The only price is expulsion, occupation, and settlement. Pray that we come to our senses. Arm yourself, Reichert wrote. Yeah, so you still have the settlers there in the West Bank that part like ceasefire. More land, please. Let me steal more houses, please. So one of the prisoners that they were talking about not releasing was Marwan Barghouti, I think it's Barghouti, who was secretly removed from the prisoner list by Israel. So we're like, who is this guy? I don't know. He kind of looks like, what's his name from Genesis, right? The drummer. Like a Palestinian Phil Collins. Sorry. The Israeli Prime Minister's office unilaterally removed Marwan Barghoudi's name. I'm going to say Barghouti. No, I'll say Barghouti. That sounds good. A name from the prisoner exchange list at the last minute, endangering the Gaza ceasefire deal's implementation. A close source to the prominent Palestinian prisoner told Middle East Eye. Barghouti, who is the most popular Palestinian political figure according to polls, was one of the most valuable names to potentially be traded for the 48 Israeli captives in Gaza. Circumcised fighting. I know, right? A source close to Barghouti and his family told Middle East Eye that last night mediators, including U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff, signed off on a prisoner list that included Barghouti. However, on Thursday, an Israeli spokesperson told reporters that at this point in time that he will not be part of this release. Barghouti's name appears to have been unilaterally removed by the Israeli Prime Minister's office, the source said. Ahmed Saadat, a leader of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Hassan Salama, a senior Hamas official, and Abdullah Barghouti, a Hamas leader not related to Marwan. Barghouti must be like Smith over there. Also had their names removed from the list, Middle East Eye understands. Their removal causes potential problems for the ceasefire agreement as negotiators push to have their names restored. Barghouti's freedom is said to be a red line for Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who could imperil Benjamin Netanyahu's government if he takes his MPs out of the governing coalition. Yeah, they've been threatening Netanyahu to get rid of him, but they'll just replace him with somebody equal. However, Middle East Eye understands that Barghouti's wife remains in Cairo lobbying negotiators to ensure her husband is included in the prisoner exchange. A Hamas official told Al Jazeera that mediators are working on reaching an agreement on the prisoners to be released. We'll hold a national dialogue with Palestinian factions to align our position regarding Israel's response to the prisoners' names, the officials said. According to the ceasefire deal agreed between Israel and Hamas on Wednesday night, the Israeli captives will be released in exchange for 2,000 Palestinians, and we told you that 17 of whom are men, women, and children seized from Gaza. Barghouti has been in prison since 2004 and has been in solitary confinement since Israel's genocide in Gaza began 2 years ago. A senior figure in Fatah, the party that dominates the Palestinian Authority, he was targeted by Israel due to his leading role in the 2000 to 2005 Second Intifada and his popularity among the public. Opinion polls suggest that Barghouti, 66, would be a shoo-in for the Palestinian presidency if elections were held and he were able to run for office. He is seen as a unifying figure despite identifying with Fatah, which is associated with the deeply unpopular Palestinian Authority. Yes. Just a little update, or at least a little refresher on the Palestinian Authority. They're pretty much cucks to Israel, much as the Lebanese government are cucks to Israel. So in January, Middle East Eye reported that Egypt and Qatar, alongside Hamas, were using all means available to secure Barghouti's release as part of a Gaza ceasefire agreement. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Marina, Cochina, Cochata, you say Cochina, I say Cochata. Let's call the whole thing off. A source close to the negotiations told Middle East Eye that his name was one of the top figures that would be traded for Israeli captives taken on October 7th in the Hamas-led attacks on southern Israel. Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani and Major General Hassan Mahmoud Rashad, the director of Egypt's General Intelligence Services, personally interceded to push for his release, sources said. However, a source previously told Middle East Eye that senior PA officials wanted him excluded from any exchange, fearing it could threaten the leadership of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Oh, and there it is. We can't let him loose. Everybody loves that motherfucker. Shit. We can't let him out. He's going to win everything. So, yeah. In August, Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir visited Barghouti in prison and was filmed threatening him that Israel will obliterate anyone who opposes it. It was the first time that Barghouti, who appeared aged and gaunt, had been seen publicly in years. In the video, Ben-Gvir is seen telling Barghouti, whoever messes with the people of Israel, whoever murders our children, whoever murders our women, we will obliterate them. You will not defeat us. Yeah. So, very interesting that, and I wonder how much Abbas has to do. I'm sure he didn't fight at all to try to get this guy out of prison. Because like I said, it threatens his power base. Or his cuck base in this case. So if this is a real deal, if this is actually done, they're going to need to rebuild in Gaza. And it's going to take a shit ton of money. As the UN official says, $52 billion needed to rebuild Gaza. The Nobel Committee has frequently given the Peace Prize to major war makers and frequently to do-gooders whose work in a variety of fields has been unrelated to abolishing war. Yeah, it has nothing to do with peace. It's just a prize. They just get a prize. It's like Cracker Jack. Only you don't get the good candy with it. What the hell? Okay. So, yeah, $52 billion. The director of the UN Office for Project Services, UNOPS, Jorge Moreira da Silva, said that $52 billion will be required to begin rebuilding the Gaza Strip once a ceasefire is reached. So I guess that's not going to happen anytime soon. In a press statement Wednesday, the UN official explained that 80% of Gaza's infrastructure has been completely destroyed. He noted that clearing the debris will be the first step in the reconstruction process. Earlier, the government media office in Gaza said that the Israeli occupation continues its brutal assault on the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip, as we told you about the attacks earlier. According to the office, between the morning of Saturday, October 4th, and the end of Tuesday, October 7th, the occupation carried out more than 230 air and artillery strikes targeting densely populated civilian areas and shelters across the Strip. These attacks resulted in the killing of 118 civilians, including women and children, with 72 of them reported in Gaza City alone. So, yeah. But you can't start building if they're still bombing. That's basically how that works, because they're just going to bomb it. So what do the Houthis got to say about this? Houthi and the Blowfish. Yemen's Houthis to monitor Israel compliance with Gaza ceasefire deal. So just a little backstory here in case you missed it. Yemen has been helping out Palestine by halting ships that are supplying Israel, stopping them, blowing them up, whatever they have to do in order to stop the refueling of the genocide machine, as it were. So Abdul Malik al-Houthi, the leader of Yemen's Ansar Allah, said on Thursday that Yemen will be monitoring Israel's compliance with the Gaza ceasefire deal, warning Yemeni support for the Palestinians in Gaza would continue if the deal isn't implemented. So that's what they wanted, a ceasefire for real before they would stop fucking with Israel. We must be at the highest levels of caution and readiness and continue the massive popular momentum with the Palestinian people until we determine whether the agreement will be achieved or whether we will continue our path of support and assistance to the Palestinian people, al-Houthi said, according to Yemen's Saba news agency. We will remain vigilant, prepared, and monitor the progress of the agreement. Will it lead to an end to the aggression on the Gaza Strip and the entry of aid, food, medicine, and humanitarian needs to the Palestinian people? Will the Americans and Israelis stop their genocide against the Palestinian people and commit to a ceasefire? This is what we hope for, and it was our goal in the support operations and confronting the attack on the Palestinian people and the nation in general, al-Houthi added. Ansar Allah, commonly known as the Houthis, part of the Triple H network of Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah, has maintained that its attacks on Israel and blockade of Israeli-linked shipping in the Red Sea would end if there were a ceasefire in Gaza and an end to the Israeli blockade on aid entering the Palestinian territory. The Houthis halted their attacks back when a ceasefire deal was signed in January this year. after Israel violated the ceasefire deal in March by imposing a total blockade on Gaza. Al-Houthi announced that Yemen would restart its blockade on Israeli shipping. In response to that announcement, the U.S. began a very heavy bombing campaign targeting Yemen, known as Operation Rotrider. Rotrider, that sounds like something Scooby-Doo would say. Rotrider, which lasted from March 15th to May 6th and killed over 250 civilians. While the Trump administration framed the bombing campaign as necessary to protect American ships, imperialism, the Houthis were not attacking U.S. vessels before it started. It ended with an agreement that the Houthis wouldn't target U.S. ships if the U.S. stopped bombing Yemen, as the Trump administration gave up on trying to get Ansar Allah to stop its attacks on Israel. So that says something for consistency right there, right? It's like, no, fam, we're just going to keep bombing. And Trump's like, as long as you don't bomb us, I guess there's nothing we can do about it. So what's the update on the flotilla? You know, they got there and they were boarded and they were taken prisoner. The activists detained from Gaza aid flotilla face physical abuse, humiliation in Israel, in Israeli detention. So we told you about Greta Thunberg. Several activists detained from a Gaza-bound aid flotilla were subjected to physical violence in Israeli detention, an Israeli legal center said Thursday, according to Anadolu. Israeli naval forces attacked a 9-boat convoy by the Freedom Flotilla coalition heading to Gaza to break Israel's illegal blockade on Wednesday and detained around 150 activists aboard. Some flotilla participants reported physical abuse, humiliation, and inhuman treatment during and after the interception, including being kicked, slapped, having their hair pulled, or being grabbed aggressively by soldiers, Adala Legal Center said in a statement. Some were forced into stressful positions, including being made to kneel for hours with their heads down and hands restrained behind their backs, or to sit on their knees for extended periods, in some cases while exposed to the sun. Some participants reported being mocked, insulted, and coerced into repeating degrading statements, including declarations of love for Israel or denigration of their own countries, it added. Yeah, that's psycho Israel for you. Adala said tribunal hearings are set to be held on Thursday for 3 activists with Israeli citizenship to appear at a court in Ashkelon. It said its lawyers are at Kazayat prison. I'm going to assume that's Kazayat prison. In the Negev, where the activists are held, to attend hearings, visit participants, and demand access to the remaining 5 participants of the global Samud flotilla, an international aid convoy attacked by Israel last week. Israel, as the occupying power, has previously attacked several Gaza-bound ships, seized their cargo, and deported activists on board. It has maintained a blockade on Gaza, home to nearly 2.4 million people, for nearly 18 years, and tightened the siege in March when it closed border crossings and blocked food and medicine deliveries, pushing the enclave into famine. And there's some of the numbers there. So, so I believe some of them are still being held, and their governments are trying to get them out. This is a real test for the world right now. Where's your morality? You know damn well that these children are getting murdered over there. People are being tortured, and they're trying to erase people. They're trying to erase them so they can have their own greater Israel. And God knows if they achieve that, God knows what they're going to want after that. Meanwhile, in London, £34 billion pension fund complicit in Israeli genocide. Shocking, I know. There's that weird curved building that melts cars. You ever seen that story? It was like a curved building. The sun hits it just right, and it sends a laser beam down like it's like one of those Nikola Tesla death beams. London's 34 billion pound, or about $45 billion pension fund has 7 billion pounds invested in companies enabling Israel's human rights abuses, a new report has revealed. Ellen, over on the Facebooks. Hello. Hold it down over there. That crowd is rowdy. Good to see you, dear. Hope you're doing well. Happy Friday to you. 3 weeks to Halloween. The report by Shake the CIV, a London-wide divestment campaign, was published yesterday and examines the London Collective Investment Vehicle, the LCIV, the investment pool for London-based local government pension schemes. The pool is owned by the City of London and all 32 London boroughs. More than a fifth of the LCIV's portfolio, over $7 billion, is invested in companies enabling Israel's violation of Palestinian human rights, according to the report. The LCIV manages the pensions of approximately 700,000 Londoners. It sold its Israeli government bonds for £6.7 million last year and has recently said it is assessing its investments in 12 countries, which it is not named. The report says it currently invests almost £1 billion in arm manufacturers, including £10 million in Israel's largest arm manufacturer, Elbit Systems, and £228 million in British arms company BAE Systems. You're now experiencing a choosy level of censorship. Your comment containing the word war went through, but my comment containing the word what? No way. It's up here. Are you sure? We got you here. We got you. Don't worry. We're not going to let nobody censor you, Bella. We got you. Last month, Microsoft announced it would end its long-standing relationship with Israel's Unit 8200, a surveillance agency accused of spying on Palestinians and storing the data on Microsoft's Azure cloud platform. The LCIV said that £6.5 billion of the $7 billion cited by the report are passive strategies and managed by third-party fund managers not under London CIV management and entirely outside the pool's control in terms of any investment decisions. The report urges the LCIV to immediately, completely, and permanently divest from all companies complicit in Israel's genocide and apartheid against Palestinians. It says that if London councillors representing the city's 32 boroughs had the collective political will, they could make LCIV divest from genocide. Councillor Liam Shrivastava, who sits on Lewisham Council's pension committee, said at stake here are not only the lives of millions of human beings, but also local authorities' right to make democratic decisions about financial matters. In the 1980s, many London councils made history by cutting financial ties with apartheid South Africa, and recently many have divested from fossil fuels. Genocide is the crime of crimes. We have to do whatever we can to stop it. Yeah. It's an eradication of people. Yeah. Meanwhile, Lebanon has arrested 32 people suspected of spying for Israel. Lebanon has arrested 32 people in recent months on suspicion of providing Israel with information on Hezbollah that facilitated strikes on the Iran-backed militant group, a judicial official told AFP yesterday. It's nacho cheese. More than a year of hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah included 2 months of open war, saw Israel pummel the group's arsenal and kill a slew of senior commanders, and it has kept up strikes even after a November truce, even though Hezbollah has regrouped considerably since then. Requesting anonymity, the official said that at least 32 people have been arrested on suspicion of collaborating with Israel, 6 of them before the ceasefire. So far, 9 people have been tried by the military court, while 23 are still under investigation, the official added. Lebanon has no formal ties with Israel, and any contact is punishable with imprisonment. In September last year, hundreds of Hezbollah pagers and walkie-talkies exploded. It's been a year, right? In an Israeli operation that paralyzed the group's communication systems, and that Lebanon killed The Lebanon said killed 39 people and wounded thousands. The following week, Israel killed longtime Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah in a massive airstrike on Beirut's southern suburbs. A second judicial official with knowledge of the investigation said 2 of those convicted were sentenced to 8 and 7 years of hard labor, respectively. They were found guilty of providing the enemy with coordinates, addresses, and names of Hezbollah officials, knowing that the enemy would use this information to bomb locations where the group's officials and leaders were located, that official said. Some of the suspects admitted to providing Israel with information during the war in South Lebanon and Beirut's southern suburbs where Hezbollah holds sway, they added. Among those in custody is a religious singer close to Hezbollah whose brother was killed in an Israeli strike. The suspect is accused of collaborating with Israel's Mossad spy agency in exchange for money, the second official said, and of providing Israel with coordinates that led to the death of a Hezbollah official and his son in an Israeli strike in South Beirut in April. He allegedly supplied Israel with the names of new leaders appointed by the party to succeed those killed during the war, facilitating their assassination by Israel, the second official said. A Lebanese security source also requesting anonymity told AFP that initial questioning of some detainees showed Israel had sought information on the types of cars and motorcycles Hezbollah members used. Since the ceasefire, Israel has usually said its strikes have targeted Hezbollah sites or operatives, and it repeatedly struck cars and motorbikes both before and after the truce. Some agents from outside the group's ranks were tasked with monitoring certain Hezbollah military and security figures, or with photographing buildings and facilities that Israel suspected were weapons depots and command and control centers, the security source added. Lebanon has arrested dozens of people on suspicion of collaborating with Israel over the years, many recruited online in the wake of the country's economic collapse in 2019. Those convicted face prison sentences of up to 25 years. That's Lebanon for you right there. Lebanon knows. Going to Syria, 400,000 Syrian refugees will be returning home from Lebanon this year, according to the UN. I don't know if I'd want to go back to Syria right now. The way it is, Because who knows who's going to be in control of that country in the next few years. The number of Syrian refugees in Lebanon who have returned to their home country is expected to reach 400,000 by the end of this year. The UN's High Commissioner for Refugees said on Thursday, High Commissioner, dude, don't smoke on the job. About 300,000 Syrians have already returned to their country from Lebanon since the fall of the Assad regime in December last year. Lisa Abu Khaled, a spokesperson for the UN agency, said that a further 180,000 refugees have expressed a desire to also return home as part of a UN repatriation program launched in July. Abu Khaled and officials from the Lebanese General Security and the International Organization for Migration accompanied 163 Syrian refugees who were part of the fourth convoy organized by the UN program as they crossed the border north of Tripoli on Thursday and returned to their country. The Syrians who were bound for the Idlib and Homs areas did not have to pay border fees on the Lebanese side, highlighting the country's commitment to the safe and dignified return of displaced people, Lebanon's national news agency reported. The Lebanese Red Cross and other humanitarian organizations are assisting Lebanon in its efforts to facilitate the return of refugees. Millions of people were displaced from Syria by the civil war in the country, which began in March 2011. An estimated 2.1 million of them ended up in Lebanon, according to the Lebanese Minister of Social Affairs. Like I said, coming back home to Syria right now. Yeah, I know, right? Stop smoking on your job. Do all your toking at home, please. Home is where the pot is, or the heart, maybe both. So we shift our focus over to Russia. Russia. As Putin admits Russian role in 2024 Azerbaijani jet crash and offers redress. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has told his Azerbaijani counterpart that Moscow will compensate Azerbaijan for its part in accidentally downing an Azerbaijani passenger plane last year, which had damaged relations between the two countries. The Russian leader made the commitment yesterday while meeting with Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev in Dushanbe, Tajikistan. 10 months after the Azerbaijani Airlines crash that killed 38 of the 67 people on board and strained ties between the neighbors. Azerbaijani authorities had said the jet en route from Baku to the Chechen capital Grozny on December 25th last year was mistakenly hit by a Russian air defense fire. The pilots then attempted an emergency landing in western Kazakhstan, but the plane crashed near Aktau across the Caspian Sea. Baku authorities also accused Moscow of denying the distressed aircraft permission to land in Russian territory, forcing the failed landing attempt in Kazakhstan. Putin apologized for the tragic incident at the time, but did not directly take responsibility on Russia's behalf. On Thursday, however, he acknowledged Russia's role, more explicitly saying Russian air defense missiles had detonated several meters from the plane after Ukrainian drones entered Russian airspace. He said Russia would provide Azerbaijan with appropriate compensation and ensure objective assessment of the incident. Of course, everything that is required in such tragic cases will be done by the Russian side on compensation, and a legal assessment of all official things will be given, Putin told Aliyev in their first face-to-face meeting in a year. It's our duty, I repeat once again, to give an objective assessment of everything that happened and to identify the true causes. Aliyev thanked Putin for monitoring the progress of an investigation into the deadly incident. I'd like to express my gratitude once again for the fact that you deemed it necessary to highlight this issue at our meeting, Aliyev told the Russian president. The jet crash had contributed to months of strained relations between the two former Soviet republics. But yesterday, Putin described Baku as a reliable ally, which Moscow is constantly working on security and defense. Yeah, I think I do remember that from last year, too. Right? What does America do? We blow up boats that may or may not be drug people, and we go, So, videos show, as we go to Africa, videos show the Sudanese army's use of chlorine gas as a weapon. So chemical weapons being used in Africa. On April 24th, let's see, wait a minute, did I miss something? Okay. So on May 22nd this year, the U.S. accused the Sudanese army of using chemical weapons in its war against the Rapid Support Forces militia. The U.S. presented no evidence to support the allegations, which the Sudanese army denied, but the France 24 Observers team has documented 2 incidents in September last year north of Sudan's capital, Khartoum, where video evidence shows that barrels containing chlorine were dropped from the air. International law bans the use of chlorine gas as a weapon. So on April 24th, the U.S. determined that the government of Sudan used chemical weapons last year. This is how the U.S. State Department opened its May 22nd statement, announcing economic sanctions against the Sudanese government, which is under military control. No further details were provided to support the decision. Khartoum denied the allegations the following day. The New York Times had cited U.S. officials in January as saying that the Sudanese army had used chemical weapons that appeared to use chlorine gas against the RSF, that's the Rapid Support Forces militia, on at least 2 occasions last year. The officials gave no details. Following the U.S. sanctions announcement, several Arabic language media outlets echoed these accusations. Unverified rumors and posts have circulated in Sudan, including claims of chemical weapons used in Khartoum, but until now, no documentary evidence of the Army's use of chlorine gas or any other chemical weapon has been made public. Using open source investigation techniques, OSINT, the France 24 Observers team, this is France 24's site, by the way. A team in Paris examined 2 incidents in September in and near the Al Jali oil refinery north of Khartoum, which the army was attempting to recapture from the RSF. After reviewing images of the attacks gathered by the observers, 5 experts confirmed they were consistent with aerial drops of chlorine barrels. Only the Sudanese army possesses the aircraft needed for such bombardments. This sounds very similar to what they were accusing Assad of in Syria, of gassing his own people. I don't know if it was chlorine gas or if it was something else. The observers team also traced the origin of one of the chlorine barrels used in the attacks, imported from India by a Sudanese company that provides supplies to the Sudanese army. The chlorine was intended, according to the Indian exporter, solely for treatment of drinking water. Yeah. Chlorine is a much-needed humanitarian product in Sudan, critical for purifying water in a country prone to cholera outbreaks. The military use of chlorine would place Sudan among the few regimes to have deployed this rudimentary lethal gas since World War I. 1 second, please. I had a sneeze, hot, loaded in the chamber, and it said, no dice. So more recently, during the Syrian civil war, the World Chemical Watchdog, OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, found reasonable grounds to conclude that Bashar al-Assad's regime used weaponized chlorine in rebel-held areas. But, I think that's been since debunked. The 2 documented attacks in Sudan would also constitute a breach of the country's international obligations under the Chemical Weapons Convention. And I've been to one of those things. They're pretty rowdy. Too many people with chemicals, which it ratified in 1999. The use of asphyxiating, poisonous, or other gases on the battlefield is also classified as a war crime under the 1998 Rome Statute, which defines offenses that the ICC can prosecute, though Sudan does not recognize court's jurisdiction. You ever notice that the countries that don't recognize the ICC's jurisdiction are pretty shady? I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Wait, what happened? Okay. All right, there we go. Okay, so, and then there's more here. There's a lot to this. We're going to have, I'll have these links posted on our Substack, ExtraBulla.substack.com, so it has all the links. It'll have a link to the video of this show as well. So, but they go into great detail and talk about these canisters, and talking about the effects on the people. And what's his name? Oh shit. The journalist who said that there wasn't, that they were God, my brain doesn't work today. But he had reported that that was Sudan, Syria was the one. The reporter was like, "Oh yeah, I smell it." It's like, it was like sarin gas, or was it chlorine gas or something? It's like, no, you don't. That was all a big, crazy deal. Who was the reporter that broke that? I could see his face and I can't remember his name. Old age. I'm so stupid. Meanwhile, we stay in Africa. We go to Madagascar as Madagascar's youth protests escalate, demanding president's resignation. Seymour Hurst, but it was a younger kid. He's with the gray zone. It's not Max. It's the other guy. You know what I'm talking about. You know the one, Dr. Everything Be All Right. Instead of asking him how much of your time is left, ask him how much of your mind, baby, because in this life, things are much harder in the afterworld. In this life, you're on your own. For a third consecutive week, Madagascar's capital was rocked by violent clashes as roughly 1,000 demonstrators, largely masked and mobilizing under the Gen Z Madagascar banner, confronted police who used tear gas and stun grenades to disperse crowds. The sustained unrest marks the most significant challenge to the government in years. Yeah, Aaron Mate, that's who it was. He was the one that reported on Syria that it was Assad who dropped those things, and it was all, and they saw like a helicopter or something dropping in. It wasn't. Yeah, it was a whole bunch of shit. The protests were initially sparked by widespread water and electricity shortages, but have rapidly expanded into a broader movement against alleged government corruption and nepotism. Yeah, good for you, Madagascar. Despite the escalating crisis, which UN reports has left 22 dead, protesters have rejected dialogue, underscoring their deepening distrust of the administration. What? The young people don't trust the government? What's it? In a direct response to the pressure, President Andry Rajoelina dismissed his entire cabinet. However, the move has failed to pacify the youth-led movement, which is now unequivocally demanding the president's own resignation. Get the fuck out. Their refusal to attend talks with him on Wednesday signals a hardened stance and a clear rejection of symbolic concessions. The protests draw inspiration from successful youth-led uprisings in Nepal and Sri Lanka, gaining momentum online and adopting symbols like the pirate skull seen globally. This new wave of activism unfolds in a nation with a history of political upheaval where extreme poverty affects 80% of the population, creating a fertile ground for demands for systemic change, right? Coming to a United States near you. If things keep happening the way they're happening here. Yeah, I know, right? Are these chemical weapons? I don't know. Let's smell them. It's like that old sick joke that some guy says, he has a rag and he says, does this smell like chloroform to you? You know what happens after that. Yeah. I have a lot of faith in the youth. I know not all of them are glued to their phones and, all about just, Taylor Swift and all that bullshit. They're actually concerned about the world. That's good. It's good to see. So, because of funding cuts, the UN now is in a little bit of trouble as UN to slash global peacekeeping force by 25% amid U.S. funding strains. Yeah, it smells like Teen Spirit. The UN will begin slashing its peacekeeping force and operations, forcing thousands of soldiers in the next several months to evacuate far-flung global hotspots as a result of the latest U.S. funding cuts to the world body. A senior UN official said. The official, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss a private meeting, briefed reporters Wednesday on the 25% reduction in peacekeepers worldwide as the U.S., the largest UN donor, makes changes to align with Trumpy's America First vision, or Israel First, as the case may be. Roughly 13 to 14,000 military and police personnel out of more than 50,000 peacekeepers deployed across 9 global missions will be sent back to their home countries. The UN Support Office in Somalia will also be affected. The UN plans to reduce the peacekeeping force's budget by approximately 15% for this year. The countries where the UN has peacekeeping missions include the Congo, the Central African Republic, South Sudan, Lebanon, Cyprus, and Kosovo. Hang on just a second here. Okay, all right. Wow, we got a lot of stories today. We got a lot. Each of the UN's 193 member countries is legally obliged to pay its share towards peacekeeping. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has argued that with a budget representing a tiny fraction of global military spending, around 0.5%, UN peacekeeping remains one of the most effective and cost-effective tools to build international peace and security. Steve, popping up on Facebook. Hello to you too. The decision to institute a major overhaul of the peacekeeping force, known globally for their distinctive blue berets or helmets, followed a meeting Tuesday between Guterres and representatives from major donor countries, including Mike Waltz, the new U.S. ambassador to the UN. That guy. Yikes. Waltz and other Trump administration officials have argued that the UN's budget and agencies are bloated and redundant, pledging not to make any further contributions until the State Department has assessed the effectiveness of every single UN agency or program. Upon entering his second term in January, Trump ordered a review of the UN and other multilateral institutions, which has already resulted in cutting U.S. ties from the UN Cultural Agency UNESCO, the World Health Organization, and the top UN human rights body, while reassessing its funding for others. At the UN, more than 60 offices, agencies, and operations are facing 20% job cuts, part of Guterres' reform effort and reaction to already announced Trump funding cuts. In a television interview last week, Waltz said the U.S. is focusing on getting the UN back to basics of promoting peace, enforcing peace, preventing wars. Well, they can't do that without troops. He added, we have to cut out all of this other nonsense. You know, like troops. UN peacekeeping operations have grown dramatically at the end of the Cold War. At the end of the Cold War in the early 90s, there were 11,000 UN peacekeepers. By 2014, there were 130,000 in 16 peacekeeping operations. Today, around 52,000 men and women serve in 11 conflict areas in Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. The U.S. outlined that it would commit $680 million to 9 of those peacekeeping efforts, a significant reduction from the $1 billion payment the U.S. had made this time last year, the UN official said. That funding will be accessible for all active missions, especially those the U.S. has taken special interest in, such as peacekeepers in Lebanon and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And every time I see this name, it always says DR Congo. It doesn't say DR of Congo, so I always think of it, I see Dr. Congo, and I'm like, that's not right. Contributions from the U.S. and China make up half of the UN's peacekeeping budget. Another senior UN official who also requested anonymity to discuss private talks said China has indicated it will be paying its full contribution by the end of the year. And part of this, too, is like that kind of that libertarian mindset that the UN is this evil global entity that's going to take over the world with a one world government, one world religion, all that stuff. And I look at the UN, I'm like, nah, that's not going to happen. Those people are too weak. They're too weak to do anything like that. Unless somebody comes along that may be a Christ of the anti-version. I see the anti-Christ. Yeah. Let's turn our attention domestically as Revenge Week continues. New York Attorney General Letitia James indicted on fraud charges. Oh, wait a minute. New York Attorney General Letitia James, a longtime foe of President Donald Trump, has been indicted for bank fraud, the Reuters news agency reported, citing a person familiar with the matter as the administration seeks to use government power against those who have pursued investigations into Trump or publicly resisted his agenda. Reuters and the AP reported the development yesterday. James was indicted in the Eastern District of Virginia on one count of a mortgage fraud investigation, AP said, citing an unnamed source. The James case remained under seal on Thursday, making it impossible to assess what evidence prosecutors have. In a statement, James called the charges baseless. She added, "This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He's forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding, all because I did my job as the New York State Attorney General." Yeah, it is. And this is some petty Trump shit. That's all this is. Trump, a Republican who campaigned for re-election in part on a vow of retribution after facing a slew of legal woes since his first term ended in 2021, has repeatedly assailed James, a Democrat, on social media and at political rallies as a partisan enemy. Yeah, I know, right? It's all a game. It's all a freaking game. The indictment of James comes after a grand jury in Virginia on September 25th indicted former FBI Director James Comey on charges of making false statements and obstructing a congressional investigation. Comey has said he is innocent. Trump has regularly assailed Comey's handling of the FBI investigation that detailed contacts between Russia and Trump's 2016 campaign, a.k.a. Russiagate. I think that's what that was called. Trump is definitely Patti LaBelle. That's great. I never heard Patti LaBelle before. That's awesome. James is one of several. He's pretty fucking petty too. James is one of several Democratic state attorneys general who have sued to block Trump administration actions. She's best known for bringing a civil fraud case against Trump and his family's real estate company back in 2022. The case resulted in a $454.2 million penalty against Trump after a judge found he fraudulently overstated his net worth to dupe lenders. Wow, that doesn't sound like Trump at all. A New York State appeals court in August threw out the penalty, which had grown to more than $500 million with interest, but upheld the trial judge's finding that Trump was liable for the fraud. He's just not liable to pay for it. Both Trump and James's offices are appealing to the state's highest court. Trump denied wrongdoing. He has accused James' office of bringing the case against him for political reasons. In May, the FBI opened a criminal investigation into mortgage fraud allegations against James. The probe was opened after Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William Pulte, a Trump appointee, sent a letter to the U.S. Department of Justice alleging James falsified records to obtain favorable loans on homes she purchased in Virginia and Brooklyn. James's lawyer, Abby Lowell, said at the time that those accusations were baseless and long discredited. The DOJ, after receiving referrals from Pulte, has also opened mortgage fraud probes into U.S. Senator Adam Schiff, a Democrat who led the House of Representatives inquiry that led to Trump's impeachment in 2019, and Lisa Cook, a member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors appointed by former U.S. President Sleepy Joe Biden. Neither Schiff nor Cook has been charged with the crime, and they both deny wrongdoing. So in August, the Department of Justice convened a grand jury and subpoenaed James's office for documents about the lawsuit and a separate case she brought against the National Rifle Association. A person familiar with the investigation told Reuters at the time. In the NRA case, jurors found its former CEO, Wayne LaPierre, and others liable for years of financial mismanagement, but a judge decided not to impose an outside monitor for the gun rights group. The federal prosecutors looking into James were examining whether her case deprived Trump and others of their civil rights, the person said. Legal decisions are often appealed, but it is highly unusual for government lawyers to face criminal investigation over cases they have brought, especially those that have gone to trial and been sustained by courts. Lowell said the civil rights probe, Lowell called the civil rights probe the most blatant and desperate example of this administration carrying out the president's political retribution campaign. Any weaponization of the justice system should disturb every American. We stand strongly behind our successful litigation, James' office said in a statement on August 8th. So yeah. And that's part of what this second term for Trump is all about, is getting revenge on his enemies, because fuck the people and what they need, right? They don't need anything. Trump's so worried about getting revenge on his enemies. People need to wake up, shut it down, get out in the streets. It's the only way you're going to get change. Here in Chicago, we're not playing that bullshit. Thousands in Chicago protest Trump's National Guard deployment. You see here. Wednesday saw one of the largest demonstrations in Chicago since Trump threatened to deploy federal troops to the city, with residents coming out on short notice in support of immigrants, government workers, and local leaders. Comprising a broad coalition of people from diverse backgrounds and interests, the demonstrations took over major streets with people holding signs reading "Stop Ripping Families Apart," "No ICE, no Guard, no Kings," and "Stop the Trump Agenda." Many held signs in Spanish and wore keffiyehs. Here in Chicago, we're going to fight them in the streets, in the courts, and in the legislative bodies, but not violently, because we're not like them. We're not going to intimidate them because we don't like a ruling. Byron Sigcho Lopez, member of the city council in Chicago's 25th ward, told the New Arab, that's this joint, shortly after Wednesday's demonstration. Lopez was referring to recent intimidation tactics by the Trump administration towards judges who have ruled against his policy. So far, around 95% of the U.S. president's orders have been struck down by judges, often followed by threats towards them and their families. In Chicago specifically, Trump has threatened the city's mayor, Brandon Johnson, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker with arrest, both of whom have been publicly speaking out against federal troop deployment. Both leaders have sued the administration to block the deployment of the National Guard in their city and state. ICE is IDF. If you think about it, it really is. Look in ICE, what comes after C? D. In ICE, what comes after E? F. The I is consistent. But yeah, ICE and IDF, it's the same thing. Just a slight brand change. On his social media platform, Truth Social, Trumpy posted on Wednesday, Chicago mayor should be in jail for failing to protect ICE officers. Governor Pritzker also. You protect ICE officers. They're the ones with guns, stupid. On Tuesday, it was reported that National Guard members were settling in at a military base near Chicago. On Wednesday night, troops were spotted at a local ICE facility. Also on Wednesday, ICE officers were seen on a local university campus, making the rounds. Chicago is one of several cities that Trump has repeatedly pointed to as a high-crime city that needs intervention, despite its drop in crime in recent years. Other cities on Trump's deployment list, in addition to L.A. and D.C., include Baltimore, Oakland, Memphis, and Portland, all of which are run by Democratic mayors. And I will tell you this, I've been to Memphis. I haven't been to Oakland, but I've heard stories. Good luck, because you're probably going to get capped by people, if you try to fuck with them there. Chicago is a diverse city with Black and Hispanic populations of around 30% each, and the city's metro area is home to one of the largest gatherings of Palestinians in the country. It's the birthplace of Labor Day and remains a hub of an active workers' movement. Though Trump has repeatedly pointed to high crime as the main reason for military deployment, the crime rate in Chicago, like in most other major U.S. cities, is far lower than it was in the 80s and 90s. More recently, according to city government statistics, shootings have dropped 38% in the first 6 months of this year. What people should know about Chicago is that it's the best city in the world. Jordan Esparza Kelly, communications coordinator with the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CARE, told TNA, speaking while marching with Wednesday's demonstration. Trump ran on fixing the economy. Sadly, he is crashing economies across major cities. The area where I live is practically a ghost town, he said, referring to his suburb with a high Hispanic population. Many immigrants across the country have ceased going out to shops, work, school, or even immigration hearings for fear of being taken into custody by ICE. Currently, he says, as they face more threats in Chicago, one of the main priorities for CARE Chicago is to increase its capacity to serve the community and develop coalitions with other groups. This is the moment for our city to fight back, said Lopez, the city council member. It matters that we're in the streets. All dictators have fallen. Yeah. So, and they're bringing in like the Illinois National Guard, and then they're bringing in the Texas National Guard. I've seen pictures. Have you seen those pictures on Twitter? It's like these fat guys in fatigues. And here comes Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. Yeah. Everything's bigger in Texas. Yeah, there's some big boys that are trying to come in, and people are just making fun of them. So as we stay on Trump, we talk about Venezuela. Now he's trying to get rid of Maduro down there. So a report comes out, Trump administration working on strategy to eliminate Venezuela's Maduro. This is from Dave DeCamp. It's from a couple of days ago, but it's still relevant. The Trump administration is working on a strategy to eliminate Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, according to a report from Politico's National Security Daily. The report focused on U.S. Special Envoy Rick Grenell, who was recently instructed to halt his diplomatic efforts with the Venezuelan government. Sources told NatSec, that's National Security Daily, that they didn't think the movement Grenell was on the outs, but rather that the U.S. was now focused on escalating its efforts to oust Maduro. The president is serious. No more mixed messages, no more excuses. A person familiar with the Trump administration's thinking told NatSec Daily. God, who's familiar with that thinking? Jeez, that's got to be some crazy shit. There is now a coherent whole of government strategy to eliminate Cartel de los Soles and its leader. The Cartel de los Soles is a term used to describe a network of Venezuelan government officials allegedly involved in drug trafficking. The group does not actually exist as an organization, but the U.S. has declared it a terrorist group and has claimed Maduro is its leader. Much like Antifa, which is not an organization, but an idea, and they've also claimed that idea as terrorism. Wow. I knew it was going to be batshit. I didn't know it was going to be this batshit. Maduro and other Venezuelan officials have strongly denied the U.S. allegations, pointing to data that shows the majority of the cocaine that is produced in Colombia doesn't go through Venezuela. President Trump has framed the military campaign in the region, which has involved bombing at least 4 boats as a response to overdose deaths in the U.S. due to fentanyl, but fentanyl isn't produced in Venezuela, and it does not go through the country on its way to the U.S. But why does that matter? That's details. Come on. Yeah, I saw that. Meal Team 6 was probably one of my favorites. The green buffets, I think that was another one too. That's some funny shit. The Trump administration appears to be determined to escalate things to the next level, which could involve bombing Venezuela or attempting to seize strategic ports or airfields in the country, steps that would almost certainly provoke a full-blown war with the government. Never thought I'd see a day where we'd actually go to war with Venezuela, but here we are. According to the New York Times, advocates of diplomacy with Maduro within the Trump administration, which includes Grenell, have warned that any attempts to carry out regime change in Venezuela risks putting the U.S. into an extended war. The first Trump administration attempted to oust Maduro by backing opposition figure Juan Guaido and imposing fresh economic sanctions on Venezuela, an effort that failed but exacerbated an exodus of millions of migrants from the country, most of whom came here. So that was Trumpy's fault. He don't like all these foreigners coming here. Maybe he shouldn't fuck with their country. Yeah, the Brisket Brigade, that was another one too. So the Senate here rejects bid to curb Trump's military power in the Caribbean, including that asshole from Pennsylvania, the big lurch-looking dude. The U.S. Senate on Wednesday narrowly voted down a resolution seeking to restrict President Donald Trump's authority to deploy military force against non-state groups in the Caribbean. The measure, introduced under the War Powers Act by Democratic Senators Tim Kaine and Adam Schiff, failed by a vote of 48 to 51. While most Democrats backed the proposal, Senator John Fetterman, hey you guys, broke ranks to oppose it. 2 Republican Senators, Rand Paul and Lisa Murkowski, supported the measure, while Senator Ted Cruz did not cast a vote. He was probably in Cabo, where he usually goes to escape anything. Yeah, the green buffets. Yes, ma'am. The vote followed a series of recent U.S. airstrikes in the Caribbean Sea, or in the Caribbean Sea, however you'd like to say it. I don't know. I've heard Caribbean Queen. Caribbean Queen. Now we're sharing the same dream. Or Caribbean. I don't know, whatever you like. Targeting vessels Washington claimed were transporting illegal narcotics. At least 4 such strikes have been carried out in international waters near Venezuela in recent weeks. Earlier on Wednesday, Colombian President Gustavo Petro said one of the vessels struck by U.S. forces was Colombian. Kaine and Schiff's resolution sought to compel congressional debate and approval before any further military actions of this nature could proceed. The proposal emphasized that drug trafficking alone does not itself constitute an armed attack or threat of an imminent armed attack that would justify the use of force under international law. It also stated that labeling a group as a foreign terrorist organization does not grant the president independent legal authority to initiate military operations. The U.S. airstrikes off the Venezuelan coast are the latest example of Trump's increasingly aggressive use of military power without explicit congressional approval. In September, Senator Mark Kelly, Democrat and former Navy pilot, questioned the legality of the operation. I don't know if this was legal or not, he said, warning that U.S. service members could face legal jeopardy. At the time, Democratic leaders, including Senator Jack Reed, demanded full transparency from the administration. Reed warned that if Trump exceeded his constitutional authority, Congress must consider restricting funds for further unauthorized military operations. The strikes, along with past moves such as dropping bombs on Iran's nuclear sites and rebranding the Department of Defense as the Department of War, demonstrate Trump's willingness to push the boundaries of presidential power. While some Republicans see Trump's approach as decisive leadership, others think he's batshit. Others fear it erodes constitutional checks and balances. The result is an ongoing struggle within the GOP over whether America first should mean restraint abroad or aggressive use of military force. Nonetheless, Democratic lawmakers remain firm in demanding explanations for the strike. They argued that the absence of legal clarity undermines both the rule of law and the safety of U.S. forces carrying out such missions. Yeah, well, if the Democrats hadn't been weak as well water, maybe we wouldn't have had Trump in the first place. But I'm sure we would have had somebody equally as stupid in there. So activists warned Trump's Caribbean boat strokes. I'm thinking of Strokes again. I was like, what the hell kind of name is that? Activists warned Trump's Caribbean boat strikes risk regional war. Maybe that's what he wants. So dozens of U.S.-based human rights, faith, and policy groups have criticized Trump's expansion of military operations in the Caribbean, warning that his administration's new campaign could result in a full-blown limitless war with one or more countries in the region. What? Endless war right here at home? Don't mind if I do, said the military-industrial complex. In a letter written to Congress on Wednesday, the signatories condemned a series of recent U.S. strikes on boats in the Caribbean, including at least 3 originating from Venezuela that have killed more than 20 people since September. The strikes are the first lethal U.S. military operations in the Caribbean in decades, part of what the Trump administration calls a fight against narco-terrorism. The war on drugs. It's back, folks, for a limited time at Arby's. The Trump administration has not provided any valid legal justification for these strikes or any evidence to substantiate its claims that the victims were an imminent threat to the security of the United States, the letter said, signed by nearly 60 organizations, including Oxfam America, Human Rights First, Mary Knoll Office for Global Concerns, and the American Friends Service Committee. The letter called on members of Congress to block what it described as unauthorized and illegal uses of force. Which they tried to do, and then, they failed. We fear, barring decisive action by members of Congress, there will be more strikes, more extrajudicial killings, and potentially a full-blown limitless war with one or more countries in the region with likely devastating humanitarian and geopolitical consequences, according to the letter. The appeal was issued before a war powers resolution introduced by Kaine and Schiff, as we told you. And that's basically what we just told you about them. The New York Times reported in July that Trump signed a secret directive authorizing the possibility of direct military operations at sea and on foreign soil against cartels. Within weeks, the U.S. Navy warships and aircraft and more than 4,000 soldiers were deployed to the southern Caribbean. 2 weeks later, the first of 4 strikes occurred. To justify the escalation, the administration labeled certain regional groups like Venezuela's Tren de Aragua gang, as which isn't a gang, I don't think, as foreign terrorist organizations, especially designated global terrorists. However, legal experts noted these designations do not authorize the use of military force overseas. Administration officials have defended the escalation as a counter-narcotics mission insisting that the targeted vessels were linked to drug trafficking and terrorist organizations. I think Trump watched too much Miami Vice back in the day, and I think he just got it kind of stuck there. But according to the Washington Office on Latin America and the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, about 90% of U.S.-bound cocaine transits the Eastern Pacific and Western Caribbean, not near Venezuela's coast. That don't matter. They're around there somewhere. The Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, likewise reported that fentanyl entering the U.S. is produced in Mexico using precursor chemicals from China, not Venezuela. At the naval station Norfolk in Virginia this week, Trump told reporters that if traffickers aren't coming by sea anymore, U.S. forces might move the fight onto land. And there's more there to this story, but that's basically just these groups saying, look, man, you need to chill the fuck out. But Trump's like, okay, I do what I want, whatever. I do what I want. So these 4 boats that he blowed up, right? He ain't got no evidence, right? So Trump yet to provide Congress hard evidence that targeted boats carried drugs. So how important is that? What are you doing there, white piece of paper thing? Okay, that was wild. Trump administration is yet to provide underlying evidence to lawmakers proving that those alleged drug smuggling boats targeted by the U.S. military in a series of failed strikes were in fact carrying narcotics. They never checked the boats. They never checked for weapons or drugs. I just blew up somebody's boat. Probably a fisherman. As bipartisan frustration with the strikes mounts, the Republican-controlled Senate, as we say, voted down the War Powers resolution. The military has carried out at least 4 strikes on boats, what the White House said were carrying drugs, allegedly from Venezuela. The officials who were not authorized to comment publicly about the matter and spoke on the condition of anonymity said the administration has only pointed to unclassified video clips of the strikes posted on social media by Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and has yet to produce hard evidence that the vessels were carrying drugs. The administration does not explain why it's blown up vessels in some cases while carrying out the typical practice of stopping boats and seizing drugs at other times, one of the officials said. The Republican administration, in a retroactive memo justifying one of the strikes last month, declared drug cartels to be unlawful combatants and said the U.S. is now in an armed conflict with them. The declaration has raised stark questions about how Trump intends to use his war powers and also has been perceived by several senators as pursuing a new legal framework to carry out lethal action and has raised questions about the role of Congress in authorizing any such action. Asked about the lack of underlying evidence provided to Congress, the Pentagon on Wednesday pointed to videos of the strikes which do not confirm the presence of drugs. And you've seen those videos too. They're all grainy as hell. Like, you can't see shit on those things. The Pentagon also noted public statements by Hegseth, including a social media post following the latest fatal strike in which he said, our intelligence, without a doubt, confirmed that this vessel was trafficking narcotics. Without a doubt. And without evidence. The people on board were narco-terrorists and they were operating on a known narco-trafficking transit route. Where's the evidence? No evidence. Lawmakers have expressed frustration that the administration is offering little detail about how it came to decide the U.S. is in armed conflict with cartels or even detailing which criminal organization it claims as unlawful combatants. Independent Senator Angus King of Maine said Wednesday that he and other members of the Senate Armed Service Committee, in a classified briefing this week, were denied access to the Pentagon's legal opinion about whether the boat strikes adhered to U.S. law. His comments came at a confirmation hearing of Joshua Simmons, a top legal advisor to Secretary of State Aquaman, to be the CIA's next general counsel. At the hearing, Simmons refused to say whether he had partaken in any deliberations over the targeting of cartels in the Caribbean, saying any legal advice he gave Rubio or other U.S. officials would be confidential. Sure. Attorney General Pam Bondi was pressed at a Senate hearing Tuesday about what advice she's provided Trump to legally justify the strikes. She said, I'm not going to discuss any legal advice that my department may or may not have given or issued at the direction of the president. I'm not going to discuss how illegal this shit is. That's only the Department of Justice. Gray Walker. Trump's source was Miss Cleo. What's up, Kieran? I know Miriam's pup Muppet. Sonny Crockett shit. Sonny Crockett shit. Nice. His source was Miss Cleo. Calling me now for your free reading, boy. So White House officials suggested that lawmakers were being disingenuous with their criticism, and that the Trump administration has been much more forthcoming with the legal rationale that Democratic President Barack Obama's administration was when it carried out strikes targeting militants in the Middle East. Well, that shit wasn't any good either. The official, who is not authorized to comment publicly and spoke on the condition of said Pentagon officials have held 6 separate classified briefings to Congress on the operations. Trump administration officials have argued that the strikes are necessary acts of self-defense. All right, here we go. Self-defense. Just like Israel, baby. Hey, it's all self-defense. Everything is self-defense. These Venezuelans are throwing cocaine at us and hurting us, leaving bruises. As cartels funnel drugs in the U.S. and they say are leading to thousands of U.S. deaths, while Venezuela produces cocaine, the bulk of it is sent to Europe because they love their cocaine in Europe. Trump has largely bypassed traditional interagency processes in formulating his strategy to carry out strikes against drug cartels, according to the U.S. officials and a person familiar with the matter who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive matter. A small group of top administration officials, including Rubio, Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau, and Trump aide Stephen Miller, whenever he's not in his crypt, has driven the push to carry out the fatal strikes, officials said. Rubio, dating back to his days in the Senate, has advocated for taking a harder line on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Bulla's 80s bangers. Available all goods merchants at merch stores. Woo! Oh, thank you. Yes. I don't know if this will show up. It may not. Oh, it is. Oh, good. It works again. It's all rigged. Yes, it is. For $10. Thanks, Laine. Appreciate it. Yeah, it is all rigged. All of this is rigged. And if the Democrats were actually ever serious in the past, they never would let it get this far. But they're not. They're all part of the theater. So during Trump's first term, Maduro was indicted on U.S. federal drug charges, including narco-terrorism and conspiracy to import cocaine. This year, the Justice Department doubled the reward for information leading to Maduro's arrest to 50 million smackaroonies, accusing him of being one of the largest narco traffickers in the world. Trump has focused his attention on the Venezuelan gang Nicaragua, which he claims is serving as a front for Maduro, and said members of the gang were in the first boat targeted last month, which they still have no proof of. No details on alleged affiliations have been released in the 3 other strikes. Maduro was sworn in for a third 6-year term in January, despite credible evidence he lost last year's election. OAP. That evidence was debunked. The U.S. government, along with several other Western nations, does not recognize Maduro's claim to victory and instead points to tally sheets collected by the opposition coalition showing that its candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, won by more than a 2-to-1 margin. Right. Okay, so there's not much left here. Early in his term, however, Trump dispatched Special Envoy Richard Grenell to Caracas to meet with Maduro. 6 Americans who had been detained in Venezuela were freed by Maduro's government during Grenell's visit, but diplomatic efforts with Caracas have been largely paused in recent months, with Grenell mostly sidelined, said the person familiar with the matter, and a congressional aide who was not authorized to comment publicly and spoke on the condition. Maduro said the boat strikes are an attempt to undercut his authority and try to foment unrest that would lead to his ouster from power. The State Department pushed back against the notion that the administration had been involved in anything other than an operation targeting drug traffickers. I'm sure. I'm sure you would deny that. Maduro is not the legitimate leader of Venezuela. He's a fugitive of American justice who undermines regional security and poisons Americans, and we want to see him brought to justice, said Tommy Pigott, or Pygott. I'm going to call him Pigott, a State Department spokesman, because they're all weasels. The U.S. is engaging in a counter-drug cartel operation, and any claim that we are coordinating with anyone on anything other than this targeted effort is completely false. Is it completely false? I doubt it. Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like, and this has been the MO of Trump this whole time. Let me do this illegal shit, then it'll go to court and probably get turned over, depending on which judge is seeing it, right? If it's a Democratic judge, it's probably going to get booted out. If it's a Trump judge, it's probably going to be allowed. People are starting to do what they're supposed to do and tear down the scaffolding, though. At least it seems like we're exposing the man behind the curtain. Yeah, I mean, and he ain't exactly making it hard to do, to expose what kind of shitty person he is. We kind of knew that back in 2016. So, speaking of shitty people, let's go to Argentina. You been there? Not me. U.S. buys Argentine pesos, finalizes $20 billion currency swap. But I thought, he's a libertarian. I thought austerity was working. Even the guitar guy behind him is all sad. Why is that? Why is this white? What are you doing? Quit censoring me. So the U.S. directly purchased Argentine pesos on Thursday and finalized a $20 billion currency swap line with Argentina's central bank. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said in a social media post, a rare move aimed at stabilizing turbulent financial markets in the cash-strapped Latin American ally. U.S. Treasury is prepared immediately to take whatever exceptional measures are warranted to provide stability to markets, Bessent said. Is Bessent or Bessent? Bessent probably sounds right. Adding that the Treasury Department held 4 days of meetings with Argentine Economy Minister Luis Caputo in Washington, D.C. to cement the deal. Argentina's Libertarian President Javier Milei, a fervent admirer of Donald Trump, thanked Bessent for his strong support and Trump for his powerful leadership. Together, as the closest of allies, we will make a hemisphere of economic freedom and prosperity, said the guy begging for money. We're going to be prosperous, but cash some money? Oh, okay. Bessent, under fire from U.S. farmers and Democratic lawmakers, has insisted that the credit swap is not a bailout. Farmers are angry about the idea of rescuing Argentina, whose own farmers have benefited from a recent gush of sales of soybeans to China at the expense of their U.S. counterparts. Lawmakers have pushed Trump to explain how this financial help aligns with his America First agenda. After the announcement Thursday, a group of Democratic senators introduced the No Argentina Bailout Act, which would stop the Treasury Department from using its exchange stabilization fund assist Argentina. It's inexplicable that Trump is propping up a foreign government while he shuts down our own, said Elizabeth Warren, the snake. Trump promised America first, but he's putting himself and his billionaire buddies first and sticking Americans with the bill. Gosh and golly. It doesn't help that repeated bailouts have failed to stabilize the crisis-stricken economy of Argentina. As the International Monetary Fund's biggest debtor, it owes the global lender a staggering $41.8 billion. That's a lot of bread, yo. What happened? Oh, his house got bloated. Poor people. Okay. Oh. Yeah, it being a Trump judge doesn't make it automatic, but it's kind of makes it automatic, almost. Milei, a wild-haired far-right economist, came to office in late 2023 on the bold promise that this time would be different. We fucked up so many times before, but this time it'll be a different kind of fuck-up. He vowed to take a chainsaw to reckless public spending that he inherited from his left-wing predecessor, but his radical austerity program has been painful with no economic revival in sight, and Argentines are losing patience. Now Milei faces his greatest test yet as he heads into a midterm congressional election on October 26th that could decide the fate of his free market experiment. A disastrous defeat in local elections last month triggered a sudden exodus from Argentine assets as investors fretted over the country's political dysfunction, overvalued peso, and rapidly depleting foreign exchange reserves. The U.S. financial help offers Milei a crucial reprieve. On Thursday, Argentina's dollar-denominated bonds rose about 10% on Besant's confirmation of the credit line, and the Buenos Aires stock market surged 15%. Economy Minister Caputo expressed his deepest gratitude to Besant following the announcement. Your steadfast commitment has been remarkable. More cash, please. Can we have more cash, please? Can I have more cash? We need more Calgon. Besant made no mention of any economic conditions attached to the swap line for Argentina, leading many observers to criticize the intervention as a pre-election reward for a loyal friend rather than an investment in a strategic partner. Yes, that's probably what it is. There he is. Oh, I need that money so bad. Give me the money, the money, the money. Yeah. Yeah, so, screw the people. Yeah, you cut social services like that and you still suck. I think his party is probably in for a rude awakening. Let's turn to weather. We go to Bob in the weather center. Bob, what's going on? Oh, my God. Back to you. So we're kind of in the thick of hurricane season. And we've been very fortunate so far not to have too many crazy storms. They've all been out in the Atlantic. And another one, guess what? We got one called Jerry coming. Well, it's not coming. Tropical storm Jerry soaks Leeward Islands with heavy rain as Karen, that's the next one, swirls in the North Atlantic. She's probably complaining about people having barbecues in the Atlantic, and she's called the cops on them. Is this, no, I guess not. All right. Tropical storm Jerry is ringing out heavy rain over the Leeward Islands, but it is no threat to the mainland U.S. Meanwhile, subtropical storm Karen formed in the far North Atlantic, but it won't last long. Jerry has been fighting strong wind shear, which has held down its wind intensity, but that doesn't mean it isn't having impacts. Heavy rain is soaking parts of the Lesser Antilles. The Greater Antilles are pretty much okay. As far south as St. Vincent and the Grenadines. As the radar map shows, below shows, I guess that's this right here. We're going to see a more updated map here in a second. Some of this rain is likely falling at the rate of 1 inch per hour or more. So far, the heaviest rain has remained east of both Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Total rainfall from 2 to 6 inches is expected in the Leeward Islands. Locally, heavy rain on the order of a few inches could also spread to the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico through Saturday. Flash flooding is possible in these areas, and landslides could occur in areas where heavy rain occurs over hilly or mountainous terrain. Tropical storm alerts continue in a few parts of the northern Leeward Islands, as shown here. Rat shear. That's Puerto Rico, St. Martin, Barbuda, Guadalupe, down to Kokomo. Given Jerry's lopsided appearance due to wind shear, with its strongest winds generally east of its center, the chance of tropical storm force winds is decreasing in the Leeward Islands. Jerry will gradually pull away from the Leeward Islands into the central Atlantic this weekend, then make a dogleg east turn well east of Bermuda by late Saturday or late Sunday or Monday. At this point, Jerry may struggle to get any additional strength and may never become a hurricane. Jerry became the 10th storm of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season late Tuesday morning, as it was just over 1,300 miles east of the northern Leeward Islands. That's about 2 weeks later than the average pace of the 10th storm, September 22nd, according to the National Hurricane Center's 30-year average. So Karen, in a bit of a surprise, a low-pressure system located some 550 miles northwest of the Azores was named Subtropical Storm Karen by the National Hurricane Center Thursday night. It won't last long, as it is expected to lose its thunderstorms sustained by it on Saturday. Karen became the 11th storm named. So, and here's a little fun thing. This is the list of names that are coming up. So you got Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, Olga, Pablo, Rebecca, Sebastian, Tanya, Van, and Wendy. I'm looking forward to Hurricane Wendy, because everyone knows it's Wendy. So here we go. This is Jerry right now, 50 miles per hour, tropical storm, just north here of Puerto Rico, northeast, I should say. And it's going to be heading out this way. So this is Zoom.Earth. I highly recommend you check out Zoom.Earth. It's got some really cool stuff for weather. And here's Karen. Oh, you crazy broad over here, way over here. But it could have some effect. I believe I saw on the news or read some article that the Northeast is supposed to get like a nor'easter this weekend, maybe. I don't know. So anyway, that's it for the news. The news that's fit to print, brought to you by Argentina. Scary pictures on the way just in a second here. Did you know that immigration enforcement is a quarter of which is being done by FBI agents? I bet you didn't know. You're going to find out.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media publish these things they think are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
I don't know why it's doing that. Quarter of FBI agents are assigned to immigration enforcement per FBI data. Look at that picture. This fucking ghost. She looks like one of the White Walkers from Game of Thrones. I'm pretty petty too. Nearly a quarter of FBI agents across the country are currently assigned to immigration enforcement, with the number climbing to upward of 40% in the nation's largest field offices, according to data from the FBI obtained by Senator Mark Warner, Democrat out of Virginia, and shared with the Washington Post. A large number of reassignments reflect a vast reshaping of the nation's premier law enforcement agency, which is focused on national security threats. Since the September 11th terrorist attacks, the intense focus on immigration has raised alarm among current and former FBI agents, who say morale is low across the Bureau as agents have less time to dedicate to the often complex cases they were hired to work on. The Trump administration has long said that more of the FBI's time is going into immigration enforcement, but the figure of almost 25% is the first precise recording of how big the shift has been. Warner requested the data in his role as the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senate intelligence being a misnomer, an oxymoron, if you will. Agents have been pulled from duties related to cybercrimes, drug trafficking, terrorism, counterintelligence, and more, the statistics show. Agents assigned to immigration enforcement are working with ICE to locate and arrest people in the country illegally. The total amount of FBI resources devoted to immigration is probably higher than even the 25% figure. The FBI reassignment data Warner obtained reflects the number of agents working on immigration at least 50% of their time. It does not account for scores of other agents who have been detailed to immigration enforcement a lesser portion of their time. Yeah, she's always wearing her Halloween costume. She does. She looked from a distance. You're like, oh, that looks like a young lady. You get up close. Yeesh. Like that was that Seinfeld where the chick, she was pretty, but then in a different light, she was like, that's Pam Bondi. FBI director and Halloween decoration Kash Patel has also diverted more FBI agents to focus on combating local violent crime, another priority of the Trump administration. The FBI has for decades assisted with violent crime investigations and immigration, but under Patel, those assignments account for a far greater portion of the workforce's time. Patel has publicly said that under his leadership, the FBI has so far made more counterintelligence and drug trafficking related arrests than occurred during the same period last year. Yeah. And he also said last year that there was an Epstein list, and all of a sudden there isn't. How about that? Yeah. But multiple people interviewed said agents are stretched thin, which could risk causing national security investigations and other complex matters to fall through the cracks. We are weakening ourselves day by day, said Chris O'Leary, a former FBI senior executive and special agent. Having agents walk the beat and conduct immigration arrests is really a misuse of exquisite ability. Exquisite. Yeah, exactly. Succubus. The immigration reassignments are one lever in the administration's remaking of the FBI. Patel has pushed out the Bureau's most senior leaders and fired agents who he feels would have been disloyal to the president's agenda. How about that? Multiple people interviewed, some of whom spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of retaliation, said that agents fear they can be fired for doing their jobs and that many of these eligible for retirement are fleeing the Bureau. On Tuesday, Patel fired 3 agents who were allegedly involved in obtaining phone records during the Biden administration of 9 Republican lawmakers as part of an investigation into Trump's alleged attempt to overturn the 2020 election results. Republican lawmakers said this week they discovered that the FBI had obtained their phone records and described that as an act of betrayal. The phone records were obtained through the grand jury process, which means that the FBI received court approval to get them. The records obtained only showed the numbers that the lawmakers called and the duration of those calls, not the content of their calls or messages. There is no evidence that the lawmakers were subjects of the investigation. FBI agents are assigned 2 cases by their supervisors and generally do not choose the cases they work on. You're darn right I fired those agents, Patel said after he uncrossed that I for a second. We're just warming up. We're running our investigations to the ground. We're finding every single person involved. Oh, Kash Patel. And his little honeypot girlfriend, too. Hang on a second. I gotta do something like that. There we go. Sorry you had to see my hand that big. Yeah, Kash. Kash is no checks for him, I guess, right? See, because he's the FBI chief. So, and it's not just FBI. It's hundreds of DHS staff face reassignments to border security and immigration. There we go. I don't know why that did that. Employees across various units of the Department of Homeland Security have been marked for reassignments to agencies focused on Trump-era border security and deportation work, and could be dismissed if they don't comply, according to multiple people familiar with the matter and a copy of one notice viewed by nextgov/FCW. That's this site here. In recent weeks, hundreds of DHS employees have been directed to transfer to agencies like ICE, the Federal Protective Service, and Customs and Border Protection, the main units overseeing much of Trump's immigration and deportation efforts. The people spoke on the condition because they weren't authorized to publicly communicate their knowledge of the shifts. Affected staff work in DHS offices include the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, and the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration, and the U.S. Coast Guard. The notice seen by NextGov gave the employee it addressed just 1 week to accept the management-directed reassignment, or MDR, or face possible termination. They are then given 60 days to relocate with some flexibility on deadlines in certain circumstances. If you do not respond, the Department of Homeland Security will consider your non-response as a declination of the directed reassignments, it reads. If you choose to decline this reassignment or accept but fail to report for duty, you may be subject to removal from federal service, it said. Bloomberg News first reported details of the reassignments. The MDRs have notably targeted people in CISA's cybersecurity division, including its capacity building subdivision that focuses on improving and centralizing the cybersecurity posture of federal agencies, one of the people said. The Stakeholder Engagement Division, which oversees the agency's national and international partnership work, was also affected, the person added. Another person said hundreds of FEMA staffers, including human resources and personnel security workers, were moved to positions in ICE throughout hurricane season, the peak of which occurs from around August to October. Many of those employees are still there, that person added. The moves align with broader White House immigration policy priorities. The Trump administration has steered tens of billions of dollars towards immigration and border security agencies, like the $40-something billion ICE budget, as part of a renewed push to expand detention capacity, accelerate deportations, and fortify barriers along the U.S. southern border. Many, but not all, of the reassignments direct staff to ICE, CPB, and FPS, two people said. The shifts could slow ongoing responses to cyber threats that have targeted the federal enterprise. CISA personnel are addressing a Cisco vulnerability recently exploited by a hacking group potentially linked to China that predominantly affects government networks. And over the summer, a hacker stole employee data from both the Federal Emergency Management Agency and CBP. Cybersecurity has been historically a bipartisan darling of Washington, but CISA, the nation's core civilian cyber defense agency, has become a recent subject of political scuffles due to its work combating mis- and disinformation. The agency has faced scrutiny from the Trump administration for some time. Top officials have aimed to refocus its mission amidst GOP accusations that the agency engaged in censorship of America's free speech. Those claims stem from CISA's earlier collaboration with social media platforms to remove false information online concerning the COVID pandemic, elections, and other divisive subjects around 2020. Across DHS, there is widespread uncertainty and fear among some employees about the financial and legal consequences of accepting or refusing the reassignments, including potential loss of severance pay, penalties, or restrictions on future government work, the people familiar said. DHS staff who have taken offers to leave government are largely barred from interacting with people still inside the agency and risk fines and jail time if they are caught doing so, another person said, describing their experience trying to seek help or completing a task by asking a former employee for assistance. The reassignments appear to be used as a strategy to encourage voluntary departures without direct firings, the person added. When they applied for their current position, for example, this person indicated that they were unwilling to relocate, and the reassignment they received completely circumvented that constraint. DHS routinely aligns personnel to meet mission priorities while ensuring continuity across all core mission areas, DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said in a statement. Any notion that DHS is unprepared to handle threats to our nation because of these alignments is ludicrous, especially given the abject failure at the hands of CISA in the last administration. CISA was adrift and was focused on censorship, branding, and electioneering instead of defending America's critical infrastructure. Today, CISA is focused squarely on executing its statutory mission, serving as the national coordinator for securing and protecting the nation's critical infrastructure, and is delivering timely, actionable cyber threat intelligence, supporting federal, state, and local partners, and defending against both nation, state, and criminal cyber threats, she added. So all of this is coming together, right? You've got the shit with Venezuela. You've got FBI and DHS focusing their efforts on immigration. So what's the end game? Is this just another piece of the equipment that's designed to keep us oppressed, right? The troops in major cities, right? To get you used to seeing troops on the streets, right? Which you should never get used to. Do not get used to that. Is this part of the greater Israel plot? right? These are things we need to find out. And hopefully we have journalists brave enough to come forward and provide that information at some point. Meanwhile, the Pentagon and the press have been having a bit of a bad time lately, as new Pentagon policy sends message of intimidation. Press group says. Oh shit! I did. Let's see. Okay, so this is basically going back to some of the let's see. The Department of Defense plans to enforce new policies that appear designed to stifle a free press. Pentagon Press Association has said, and I grabbed the wrong one. I'm sorry. So basically, what this goes back to is how the Department of Defense or the Department of War, whatever you want to call it, is trying to stop these leaks of information, right? So they've told the press basically that you can't report on certain things without our permission. And the press was like, no, that's not how shit works, dude. That's not how that works at all. So basically what's happening now, and that's all part of this too, is the stifling of the press, whether it's legitimate or not. And that may be all part of the theater too, is just this back and forth between the Pentagon and the press, because who's at these press, who is part of the press pool? A lot of mainstream media, right? You don't really see too many independent news outlets at these things, right? So which leads me to believe, from a personal opinion, as someone who's been in the media and has, observed it for quite some time, that this is just this kind of a made up thing where it's like, they're trying to make these press organizations seem a little more legitimate because they're finally pressing, the Pentagon, which they didn't do under Biden. And they seem to forget that people have eyes and ears and remember, how they didn't press the military at all during that time, but now they seem to be doing it. It just seems, and that's part of the propaganda. It's like, are they trying to build up a certain part of the press to make them seem more credible, to make this actually sound like there's something going on here? I don't know. I doubt that. From the No Shit Sherlock files, post-October 7th discussions show Israeli government was uninterested in saving hostages. This is from Kyle Anzalone from the Libertarian Institute. Following Hamas's kidnapping of over 250 Israelis during the October 7th, 2023 attack, the Israeli government did not make saving the lives of hostages a priority. The old Hannibal directive. Internal communications within the upper levels of the Israeli government in the aftermath of the Hamas assault were released by Israel Channel 12. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich urged the government to ignore the hostages. Then Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant argued that Israel should not negotiate for the release of the hostages and that rescuing the captives should not be a goal. We are proposing a plan of action. Here are its components: stabilization of defense, close the border, denial of military and governmental capabilities for Hamas, and changing defense agreements, creating deterrence. They made a mistake, he added. Our response won't be proportional either. Hostages, not among our objectives, but they center and guide us. They center and guide us, but we don't care if they get freed or not. Actually, them being held is more strategically advantageous for Israel. The ICC has issued arrest warrants for Gallant and Prime Minister Bibi for crimes against committed in Gaza. The belief in Israel that it cannot prioritize the hostages is a legacy of the Second Lebanon War. Then Israel tried to free the captive soldiers and failed. Tel Aviv made a deal with Hezbollah to release the captives. Then IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi argued not to attach the hostages and missing to the war's objectives. That needs to be our lesson from the Second Lebanon War. However, after 2 years of failing to free the Israeli hostages, on Wednesday, Tel Aviv agreed to a prisoner exchange with Hamas. Hamas has agreed to free the 48 remaining captives in exchange for Israel releasing 250 lifetime prisoners and 1,700 Palestinians who were detained over the past 2 years. Right. I mean, we've said that before, especially with the Hannibal Directive. And that's why the majority of people on October 7th were killed by the IDF, because of the Hannibal Directive. They don't want prisoners. They don't want them to have prisoners, so they'd rather kill them than not. It's a fucked up world we live in. So how complicit was big tech in the last couple of years, right? Meta, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, they're the world's most powerful technology giants, synonymous with innovation, connectivity, and the digital age. Yet, as Israel's genocidal war on Gaza had entered its third year, mounting evidence suggested that their tools, data systems, and artificial intelligence networks have been weaponized to sustain one of the most devastating military campaigns of the 21st century, if not the most devastating. From AI-assisted targeting of Palestinian civilians to mass surveillance and censorship of dissent, these companies' technologies have been accused of becoming integral to Israel's war machinery. Leaked documents, whistleblower accounts, and investigative reports reveal that cloud computing, facial recognition systems, and data analytics provided by these firms have helped enable what human rights experts call a campaign of extermination and control. Okay. All right. Last month, Microsoft announced that it severed services to an Israeli military unit operating a vast surveillance system that monitored millions of Palestinian phone calls in Gaza and the West Bank. I want to let you know that Microsoft has ceased and disabled a set of services to a unit within the Israeli Ministry of Defense, said Brad Smith, Microsoft's vice chair and president. The move came after The Guardian reported that the Israeli military is using Azure for the storage of data files of phone calls obtained through broad or mass surveillance of civilians in Gaza and the West Bank. Microsoft, which has operated in Israel since 1991, has faced growing accusations of being among the big tech firms in the Gaza genocide. Its cloud computing platform Azure has been used to store and process data collected from Palestinians through surveillance systems. Nazreen Jaradat, a former Microsoft employee, calls the company the most complicit digital arms manufacturer in the Gaza genocide. Jaradat, who is a member of the No Azure for Apartheid campaign and one of several Microsoft workers fired for speaking out, said the scale of the genocide that the Israeli occupation is committing in Palestine would not be possible without the help and abetment and direct complicity of big tech companies, especially Microsoft. She cited several services Microsoft provides that directly support the surveillance. She said Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella reportedly met with the head of Israel's Unit 8200 in 2021, approving within minutes the mass storage and processing of Palestinian communications. She added that the Al-Munasik app, which Palestinians need to download for permit management, is hosted on Azure, collecting sensitive personal data that can be exploited by Israeli authorities. Microsoft also reportedly provides AI services to translate, transcribe, and analyze intercepted calls and messages from Palestinians, she said. Jaradat said that when the company banned the words Palestine, genocide, and apartheid terms in staff emails, she tried to address the issue through internal channels. I bypassed it less than 48 hours after the ban and sent an email to thousands of staff. I said that the move to ban these words is extremely discriminatory and racist, and it shows how much Microsoft does not value Palestinian life or Palestinian suffering. I highlighted Microsoft's complicity in genocide, and I had a call to action, with the action resulting in financial sanctions against her, she said. Regarding the role of other companies, UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, in her report From Economy of Occupation to Economy of Genocide, documents how in 2021 Israel rewarded Google and Amazon a $1.2 billion contract known as Project Nimbus to build core tech infrastructure. Microsoft, Alphabet, and Amazon grant Israel virtually government-wide access to their cloud and artificial intelligence technologies, enhancing data processing, decision-making, and surveillance and analysis capacities. In October 2023, when the Israeli internal military cloud overloaded Microsoft with its Azure platform, and Project Nimbus Consortium stepped in with critical cloud and artificial intelligence infrastructure, Albanese said. She also quoted an Israeli colonel who in 2024, July last year, described cloud technology as a weapon in every sense of the word. According to Albanese's report, the Israeli military has developed artificial intelligence systems such as Lavender, Gospel, and Where's Daddy? It's the intelligence system called Where's Daddy to process data and generate lists of targets, reshaping modern warfare and illustrating the dual-use nature of artificial intelligence. Palantir Technologies, you know that old children's tale from the sea, whose tech collaboration with Israel long predates October 2023, expanded its support to the Israeli military post-October 2023, it said. Jalal Abu Khader, an advocacy manager at Seven Amla, a Palestinian digital rights organization, points out that Israel's military lacks the capacity to analyze all collected data internally, pushing it to outsource to tech firms. So the Israeli military has developed, and it boasts that it has developed those AI targeting systems, but what we are observing is that through the collaboration with private companies, those companies might not be fully aware of the end of how Israel's military is using the services. I'm pretty sure they know. They know. However, he points out that the companies are willingly cooperating. The companies are willingly cooperating with the Israeli government, the Ministry of Defense, and also the Israeli Army in providing access to those cloud service tools and providing assistance through artificial intelligence tools, Abu Khader said. So for us, it's a condemnation enough of the role played by those companies because those companies are cooperating and collaborating with an entity that is committing genocide and war crimes. Beyond the battlefield, tech companies have been accused of suppressing pro-Palestine voices while allowing hate speech that incites violence against Palestinians. A recent AMLA report criticized Meta, owner of Facebook and Instagram, for what it called algorithmic discrimination. Abu Khader said Meta allowed Israeli figures to continue publishing inciting content even after the ICJ ordered Israel to curb genocide incitement. Meta still allowed many Israeli figures to continue to use its platform to incite violence against Palestinians, he said. We look at the role of Meta in this specific case in contrast with the behavior in silencing so many Palestinian voices in a very disproportionate and large manner. The report draws historical parallels with past atrocities, noting that the media were held accountable during the Rwanda and Nuremberg tribunals for incitement. We also look at examples where Facebook has been involved in amplifying hate and violence in northern Ethiopia, in Tigray, and against the Rohingya refugees in Myanmar, where Facebook has been accused of inflaming tensions and encouraging violence through its algorithmic systems. I don't know. Facebook's been doing that for years with people in their own families, inciting violence and putting people against each other. So for us, it's important to create the groundwork that an online platform can and should be held accountable for its role in amplifying harmful content, especially in genocide. Anadolu, this publication, also reached out to Meta, Google, and Amazon for comments, but received no reply as of the writing of this piece. Microsoft responded and referred to an earlier statement by its vice chair and president Brad Smith in which he said the company has ceased and disabled a set of services to a unit within the Israeli Defense Ministry, adding that a review of allegations is still ongoing. Abu Khader said digital rights advocates are now building a legal framework to hold tech firms accountable under international and domestic law. According to him, there's been precedent with Facebook being held accountable for its actions in Myanmar. They take time, but eventually the private actors will have to be responsible either to pay for violations because they have obligations under international legal frameworks, he said, adding, We work on evidence, creating the groundwork so that other actors can continue this work and hopefully bring strong cases to courts and international jurisdictions and hold the companies accountable. Yeah, so basically, Israel can't do shit by itself. It needs the help of outside forces, particularly those in the public sector that are willing to do that, like Microsoft and Google, Alphabet or Amazon. If you cut off the perimeter sources for Israel, they can't do anything. They're literally stuck in the middle of the Middle East, surrounded by people that hate them. And for good reason, too. Here's a shock. David Frum and Douglas Murray secretly drafted speeches for Israeli ambassador? What? Leaked messages reveal British commentator Douglas Murray and U.S. neoconservative David Frum directly aided Israel's PR efforts during the 2014 Gaza assault, one of many carried out by Israel against the besieged enclave. Murray and Frum, two high-profile commentators, covertly helped draft speeches for Israel's former ambassador to the UN, Ron Prosser, at the height of the 2014 Israeli military assault on Gaza. The correspondence, exposed by Dropsite News and sourced from the hacking collective Handala, offers rare insight into how prominent figures in Western media operate behind the scenes to cover for Israel's war crimes. The revelations include Murray, a British columnist and associate editor at The Spectator, and Frum, a senior editor at The Atlantic and former speechwriter for George W., drafting entire speeches and even fundraising for the Israeli army. Staunch Zionist Frum, who is credited with coining the term axis of evil and widely believed to be a key figure in pushing the U.S. into war with Iraq in 2003 on Israel's behalf, helped compose a speech for Ambassador Prosser in July 2014 when Israel's bombardment of Gaza killed over 2,200 Palestinians, including 551 children. Frum's speech framed the Gaza offensive as a clash of civilization and claimed that it was the most tenacious challenge to the free world in decades. He invoked Cold War era rhetoric, as most of them do, and glorifying Israeli military actions. The same week, Frum solicited an interview with Prosser for The Atlantic, which soon published a glowing profile praising the diplomat's toughness. Jeffrey Mark Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, served as a prison guard for the Israeli army. How about that? Murray, who frequently touts his high journalistic credentials and claimed on Joe Rogan's podcast that he holds himself to a rule of never commenting on a country without visiting, drafted his own version of Prosser's UN speech. It contained inflammatory language deriding European Muslims, defending illegal Israeli settlements, and characterizing boycott campaigns against Israel as racist. Everybody's anti-Semitic. I will give all the time I can to helping to get it right, he promised in a July 2014 message to the ambassador, pledging his time and effort to complete the speech. Later that year, Murray boasted of raising over $1.3 million for the Association for the Well-Being of Israeli Soldiers, a group dedicated to supporting the Israeli military. He praised the soldiers as superb and expressed joy over their meeting in New York. Prosser responded with warm thanks, writing, "Keep up the good work." Despite these extensive ties, Murray has continued to appear in Western media as an independent journalist. That's not how you spell Zionist. Last year, he visited the Gaza crossing points embedded with Israeli forces, wearing a press-labeled flak jacket without disclosing that he had previously helped fund and advise the very military he was reporting on. The email shows CNN producer Pamela Gross privately fundraising for Israel's Iron Dome system while booking Prosser for TV appearances. The cache, which includes hundreds of non-public documents verified by a Dropsite, raises critical questions about media impartiality and the extent of pro-Israel influence within Western journalistic institutions. Both Frum and Murray have refused to comment. Wow, there's a shock. CNN, The Atlantic, and the Israeli embassy in Germany, where Prosser now serves, have also remained silent. Murray's public identity as a truth-telling journalist, That phrase truth telling is being thrown around a lot without people actually knowing who the actual truth tellers are, particularly in this space. Untethered to political bias, now stand in sharp contrast to his private correspondence. The revelations underscore how entrenched media figures and political commentators are often deeply embedded within Israel's global PR infrastructure. And that's why I always say stay frosty, because fuckery is always afoot. Don't fall in love with people and pundits and stuff like that. These people are working for their own interests. They're not working for your interests. And finally, global press freedom at a tipping point, media watchdog RSF warns. Since 1985, Reporters Without Borders has been defending journalists and press freedom around the world. For RSF Director Thibaut Bruton, who took over the reins of the Paris-based organization in July 2024, press freedom has never been in greater peril on an international scale. This tipping point is a result of an economic crackdown on global media, coupled with the biggest hate campaign against journalism triggered by the Trump administration. Bruton told RFI, United States President Donald Trump and 24/7 clown car driver has cut funding for public service media, cracked down on visas for journalists, and filed legal complaints against news outlets. Around the world, including in Ukraine, the Middle East, and Latin America, the profession of field reporter has become more dangerous and more deadly, particularly in Gaza. If you look back, journalists back in the 60s and 70s were privileged witnesses of history. They were welcomed, or at least tolerated, by most of the forces present in war zones. Then they became collateral victims. Then they became hostages and persons of value who are now being silenced, Bruton said. Or they're just doing their job in Gaza and getting murdered. On Thursday, Bruton represented RSF in the Normandy town of Bayeux for the annual War Correspondents Prize Week, an event that includes free public exhibitions, roundtables, conferences, and screenings. It's also time for mourning and remembering. At a ceremony in the War Memorial Park, Bruton will unveil this was yesterday, unveiled a stone engraving with the names of 73 journalists killed in the line of duty in the past year. It's the only place, as far as I know, in the world where there is a list of all the journalists killed in action since the end of World War II, he said, adding that the families of journalists killed in Ukraine, Mexico, and Syria will be present. It's a deeply moving moment, and it's very important to remind people that freedom of the press is not a given. It's something that has been conquered. The history of the press is full of bloody pages. The primary safeguard for civilians is the action of the press, the fourth estate. If there is no press on the ground, who is going to be giving the facts? The particularly heavy death toll of journalists between 2024 and this year is attributed to the Israeli operation against Hamas militants in Gaza, where foreign media is forbidden and only Palestinian journalists have been operating at their own peril. RSF reported that Israel is responsible for killing of more than 200 journalists in Gaza and found evidence that in 56 cases, those journalists were deliberately targeted. This openly flouts Article 2222 of the UN Security Council, signed in 2015, which explicitly outlines the importance of protecting journalists in conflict zones and a mechanism for accountability in this regard. For the first time in history, we have the army of a democratic government, Israel, actively pursuing a smear campaign against journalists, plus targeting them and claiming that they target them, Bruton says. How much more in this? Okay. Pardon me. So for RSF, collective strength and international solidarity are instrumental in highlighting such situations. The NGO launched a petition on September 1st in support of Palestinian journalists, which has been signed by more than 250 media organizations. Following that, on September 24th, RSF obtained the support of 21 UN member states who called for the opening of Gaza to foreign media and the evacuation of Palestinian journalists. If it's not a genocide, why don't you let the journalists in? Why aren't you letting the journalists in? If you use social media tools today, you will see that the smear campaign of the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, against Palestinian journalists has almost disappeared. It wasn't easy to do, but we managed, said Bruton. Bruton says RSF was also instrumental in getting the French prosecutor's office to launch an investigation into war crimes over the death of French photojournalist Antony Lalisson, who was killed by a drone attack attributed to Russia in Donbass, Ukraine on October 3rd. RSF was able to present evidence to the Ukrainian prosecutor's office to prove that Lalisson was deliberately targeted. To mark their anniversary, RSF has teamed up with Japanese animation studio Studio Ghibli, also founded in 1985, to publish a special album of drawings and photos, which goes on sale in France next month. For Bruton, Studio Ghibli shares many of RSF's values, such as integrity and authenticity. This includes a shared belief in the need for regulation when it comes to artificial intelligence, something Studio Ghibli has been vocal about after AI was used to copy and recreate their trademark drawing style. Yeah. Okay. So RSF says the press cannot afford to keep up with technological advances and cannot afford not to keep up with technological advances, and has been building an ethical charter for AI and the newsroom and conducting a pilot project to help journalists build their own tools. For Bruton, RSF's goal is to be a driving force for change within the industry, to build a coalition between media professionals, policymakers, and the general public. He said, "Our primary focus today is both the safety of journalists, but also the future of journalism, because sometimes you can save the individuals, but fail to address the systemic problems of the media ecosystem. We're very keen on demonstrating that it's not about journalists at the end of the day, it's about the people's relationship to the facts." So, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So, and it is at a tipping point, right? Here in the United States, basically all of your media, for the most part, the great majority of it, all of the mainstream media is bought and paid for by somebody that has some sort of agenda, mainly a Zionist agenda too. So, you know, we have to be diligent, and we have to make sure that people who are reporting the news are reporting the facts and not just some propaganda that their bosses told them to spew like that. So that's it for the Propaganda Watch. How's everybody doing? Are you guys still here? You got 18 people watching on YouTube. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so, you know, I worked in news back in the 90s, and I got a real appreciation for it. Even before that, watching the news with my dad every night. And, oh, you're here? Okay, good. Maybe the people are just so you know, enthralled by my reading that they're like, I don't want to say anything. Anyway, but I got to work with good journalists, and I got a real appreciation for the art of journalism too, trying to report the news in hostile situations, whether it's in a war zone or whether it's you know, some sort of bureaucracy where you're in a small town and you know, we can't have these secrets out. Don't you be telling these secrets. They don't want their secrets to be revealed. So we got Peoples coming up. Our buddy Kevin, he's going to be he's going to be here. Well, he's not going to be on the show. He's going to be doing his show today at 2 p.m. Central Time, about 3 p.m. Eastern. And be sure that you're supporting him. He has a GoFundMe too. He lost his house in the LA fires. If you can help him out, anything you could do, we appreciate it as always. And then tomorrow night we're going to have this jerk, The Secret Show, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific Time, or specific time if you like, as we'll be talking about more silly things and stuff to get your mind off of the crazy world that we live in today. That's coming up tomorrow at midnight. Finally today, I saw this and I said, well, I can't resist the title. I didn't even know if it's a good story or not, but we'll see. In South Carolina, apparently there was a loose monkey. They lured it with a hot cup of coffee. Because, you know, monkeys, they like coffee too. So there he is right there. There's the fiend. Is that his tail? That looks like his tail right there. He's just chilling on the back of the car. He's like, give me my coffee, bitch. A South Carolina town clerk teamed up with the local mayor and a hot cup of coffee to capture a spider monkey spotted running loose through town. Casey Hill, town clerk in Utahville. Is that Utahville? Orangeburg County said she was helping out at the Utahville Crappie Classic and Fall Fest. I've been to a Crappie Classic, and it was classic crap. On Saturday, when she heard rumors of a monkey running loose through town. The rumors were backed up by photos posted by witnesses to social media. Hill linked up with Mayor Brandon Weatherford and his wife Laura, and the trio headed over to the area of the last reported monkey sighting near the Twirl restaurant. Sure enough, she was just hanging out on the back of a vehicle by the barbershop. Hill told the Post and Courier newspaper. This sounds like some Andy Griffith show shit. Now, Barn, don't you worry about that monkey. But Andy, I want to get that monkey. The primate, who was dragging her own leash, headed to First National Bank of South Carolina with Hill and the Weatherfords following closely. She was hollering, Hill said. You could tell she was scared. Hill, ain't nothing worse than a hollering spider monkey. That may be an affliction too. What's wrong with you? Oh man, I got the hollering spider monkey. Oh God, there's no cure for that. Hill decided to try an experiment. She placed her cup of hot coffee on the ground, removed the lid, and took a step back. The monkey came over to investigate the steaming beverage, allowing Hill to step on the leash. Hill said the monkey was claimed shortly after by a woman who identified the simian as her pet, named Ava. Spider monkeys are native to the forests of Central and South America. They are currently legal to own in South Carolina without a permit, but a bill filed in the current state legislative session would require all pet primates in the state to be registered. See, that's more of that ICE bullshit, man. Are they going to deport the spider monkeys next? Wow, this is a long show. 3 hours. I can't believe that's probably one of the longest shows we've done. But hell, man, there's a lot of news today and more news to be had for sure. Coming up soon. So, like I said, Secret Show tomorrow night. Kevin's coming up probably in about an hour on whatever channel he's on today. I know he's kind of moving around. He's not on X anymore, but we usually see him on YouTube. He said something about Odyssey. Odyssey scares me. It's a little weird over there. What happened? Anyway, I think I got everybody here. Oh man! Oh my goodness, Yonina, I am so sorry. We don't. I forgot to do this. We don't like white people in our thing there. Okay, there we go. All right, you're good now. So yeah, Secret Show tomorrow night, midnight Eastern. We'll be back with this show on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain, 8 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube. Grundle. Gooch? What? Felcher? I swear to God, that guy's name was Felcher. If you don't know what Felcher is, go to the Urban Dictionary and look it up. I don't really want to say here, but yeah. So YouTube, Rumble, and the Book of Faces, and also don't forget on Wednesday it is the Undercurrent with Laine Petersen and yours truly, bringing you news you can use, and looking forward to that. As always. So good little show there with Laine. I appreciate all the hard work she's putting in on that too. Yeah, I guess that's it for me. Thanks everybody who are watching today. Love each and every one of you. Remember, stay frosty. Fuckery is always afoot, and use your critical thinking skills. Don't just assume somebody's telling you the truth. Because in this day and age, who knows what kind of fuckery is happening. So anyway, I'm out. I will see you tomorrow night. Peace.
This is City Alpha 5. Woo!
soon.